Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Soon, Zhu Zicheng brought out a bronze pill tripod. It seemed like it was a foot-long pill tripod. "Senior Brotherly, this is the best pill tripod around here. It's a mediocre spiritual equipment but it's not cheap." Chuckling, Zhu Zicheng passed the pill tripod over to Li Lingtian. A regular pill tripod would only cost a few dozen spiritual stones, but this pill tripod was a mediocre spiritual equipment. A spiritual equipment ranked tripod? Taken aback, Li Lingtian took the pill tripod for a closer inspection, and it was indeed a piece of spiritual equipment. Although it was mediocre, the tripod emitted a faint spiritual sense. It was a spiritual equipment in the flesh. This was also his first encounter with a spiritual equipment, as even his blade was a common weapon. Spiritual equipment was not something a peripheral disciple like him could chance upon. Warriors in the divine martial continent not only equipped themselves with skills and pill refinery, they too sought after weapons. After all, a good weapon could increase a warrior's overall combat effectiveness. The help a weapon could do for a warrior was more important than skills. Many skills depended upon powerful weapons to be brought to full play. A warrior without an adequate weapon was technically a warrior without limbs. Even though Li Lingtian's long sword was a common weapon, unleashing bright moon in soft breeze could penetrate a warrior's spirit's repression. If he wielded a long sword that was a piece of spiritual equipment, the bright moon in soft breeze would not only penetrate the repression, but Yang Xiaotian would be killed too. Weapons in divine martial continent were also classified by rank and quality. It ranked from spiritual equipment, onyx equipment, imperial equipment, heavenly equipment, sacred equipment, to divine equipment. Each classification was also determined by the degree of quality, which was mediocre, ordinary, premium, and peerless. Aside from divine and sacred equipment, heavenly and imperial equipment were a rare find in divine martial continent, while onyx equipment was only owned by the highly skilled masters. Yes, this pill tripod is a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it does nothing for offense and defense. It can only be used to refine pills. Zhu Zicheng stared at Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian had made quite a name for himself in the past month. If Li Lingtian dared to offend even the inner sect's Yang Xiaotian, Zhu Zicheng was sure that Li Lingtian would not hold back if he were to step on his toes. "How much for these three altogether?" Li Lingtian fell deep into thought. Spiritual stones were important for cultivation, but pill refinery was more important and the priority in boosting his cultivation level. "Senior Brotherly, this pill tripod is 500 spiritual stones, while these two pill formulas are 300 spiritual stones, making it a total of 800 spiritual stones." Zhu Zicheng gave it a thought. He dared not raise the price too high or keep the price too low. If not, he would have to bear the consequences when the higher-ups looked into it. 800 spiritual stones. Li Lingtian's heart thumped. He had used up some of the spiritual stones he had previously exchanged in the library chamber. On top of that, there were 600 spiritual stones left in Lan Binhui's storage sack. He currently only had 600 spiritual stones in his entire hesitance. He mumbled in his heart, "I can't give up the pill tripod, nor can I give up the formulas. I'll be taking these three items. I'll pay the remaining 200 spiritual stones a while later." As IOUs were a norm in his past life, he should try his luck here. This, Zhu Zicheng's mind went blank. He had never come across such a thing. He had profited over the expense of countless Sky Cloud sect disciples who traded here, but it was never the other way around. "What are you trying to say?" "That I can't do that." Li Lingtian fixed his eyes on Zhu Zicheng as though he was questioning the yammering after having forked out 600 spiritual stones. "Hee, of course, it can't be done if it's anything one else, but it's no problem if it's Senior Brotherly." Zhu Zicheng was on tenterhooks. As he did not want to get on Li Lingtian's bad side, he had to give in even if he was taken advantage of. Hence, he agreed to the terms. Li Lingtian stored the pill tripod and formulas in the storage sack before he made his way towards his residence, leaving behind welfare chambers Zhu Zicheng with a helpless look on his face. Although Zhu Zicheng was shortchanged by 200 spiritual stones, he had to remain soft-spoken. A grade 1 vitality pill increases warrior's true qi, cutting down and minimizing the cultivation period. It is the lowest grade pill. Vitality pill requires vitality control grass, white jade flower, purple string fruit, aerial wind grass, narcissus needle, a first-tier level 9 inner vital, and 3 drops of level 9 blood essence, Li Lingtian murmured under his breath as he read the jade slip in his hand. Vitality pill was a grade 1 pill formula that required the most common ingredients, but it was not an easy feat to refine this pill. I'll have to take a trip to the Sky Mountains. After he had grasped the formula and tempered with the pill tripod, all that was left were ingredients and inner vital. These items required spiritual stones, and for spiritual stones, he had to head into Sky Mountains to slaughter demonic beasts. 10,000 Demons Valley. This was Sky Cloud's sex practice field, but it was where inner sect and out sect disciples both tempered themselves. This was because the place was swamped with first-tier level 8 and 9 demonic beasts. Besides, it also included the existence of second-tier demonic beasts that were comparable to the strength of a warrior spirit. Hence, most outer sect disciples stayed away from here. After a few days of cultivation in his room, Li Lingtian left and went straight to 10,000 Demons Valley. These past few days in cultivation had also made him feel like time had flown past. During the time he was in wall-facing cliff, he was constantly in cultivation and grasping pill art that he did not have the time to look into the ice and fire ring. So back in his room, he tempered with the ice and fire ring after apprehending the grade 1 vitality pill. However, he did not know what treasure the ice and fire ring would be classified as after he had tempered with it, because this was his first time coming into contact with a treasure. After all, his pill tripod was only the lowest level of spiritual equipment. Nevertheless, this ice and fire ring was more powerful than the pill tripod. Just by intuition alone, this ring should be at least a peerless spiritual equipment. However, it was indeed a defense-type treasure that could not be used for attacks, as inside resided the mystical defenses of 2 elements, ice and fire paths. The ice and fire element repelled against one another yet were placed together. This was the interesting bit. Li Lingtian had a fire dragon's heart and an immemorial ice crystal. Similarly, he also had an ice vitality and flaming warrior soul, and it depended on the heaven and earth reincarnation to balance the energies. The ice and fire ring, on the other hand, was not restrained by anything, yet fire and ice were able to coexist and display a powerful drive. The defense alone could resist against a warrior spirit's single attack in full force. As his cultivation level was still on the low, it was unbelievable for a tier 6 warrior like him to ward off a warrior spirit's full-fledged attack. Li Lingtian's confidence grew with this defense-type treasure in possession. As long as his path remained uncrossed with supreme warriors or demonic beasts, he would not be in any danger. Hold it right there, you piece of trash. Shortly after venturing into 10,000 Demons Valley, Li Lingtian heard an arrogant voice calling out to him. Helplessly shaking his head, Li Lingtian walked along without stopping. Even though he did not turn back, his divine mindfulness took in the sight behind. A youth in black who was around his 20s stood erected on a treetop, peering at him with cold eyes. Although this youth carried himself in a carefree manner, Li Lingtian had nothing but disdain for him. From where this warrior stood, he was looking at death, as the higher he stood, the bigger the fall. Swoosh! I told you to hold it right there. Are you deaf? Zhou Yunshao blew a fuse at Li Lingtian's refusal to stop. How dare a good-for-nothing act this way towards him? As a great genius, he had never received the cold shoulder. In a flash, Zhou Yunshao appeared before Li Lingtian. Didn't I King told you to stop? Are you stupid? Li Lingtian responded by sneering at Zhou Yunshao. A measly tier 8 warrior was not worth Li Lingtian's time. He may only be a tier 6 warrior, but he had far greater disposition and goals than the average man. he knew who this man was. Zhou Yunxiao was the guy who had chased after Tang Zimeng, but the latter rejected his advances. However, Tang Zimeng was Li Lingtian's fiancé. Are you looking to die? Zhou Yunxiao was dumbfounded. This piece of trash may be an eyesore, but he had never once snapped back at him, so Li Lingtian's earlier reaction caught him by surprise. However, that surprise soon turned into rage. Surging a body of vigor, Zhou Yunxiao sliced Li Lingtian with the long sword in his hand, slashing a mighty blade glare. If it was a real cut, Li Lingtian would have lost his life. It's not as impressive as it looks. Cling. With a calm look on his face and a smile, Li Lingtian extended his arm and curled his finger into a flick. At a crisp sound, the long sword slid to the side and fell right by Li Lingtian. Come out, haven't you seen enough? After forcing away Zhou Yunxiao's long sword with a finger, Li Lingtian dully said without turning back. Chapter 16. Chapter 16. Brother Lingtian, why are you here? Are you here for me? A young lady in purple appeared before Li Lingtian the moment he said his piece. The young girl, who was about 14 or 15 years old, looked about Li Lingtian's age. The two little dimples on that exquisitely flawless face enhanced her overall adorability. Her witty eyes fixated on Li Lingtian as she spoke. She was Tang Zimeng, the granddaughter of the empire's King Kaoshan. Sharing the same birthdate, she was the same age as Li Lingtian. The difference between their birth was only by an hour. For this reason, Great General Tang Feilong and Li Zhongyang arranged a betrothal between them. Tang Zimeng and Li Lingtian grew up together, but the duo gradually drifted apart after they began their cultivation journey in Sky Cloud sect. D***, you must be blind to go after Nangong Mingyue when your fiancé's no less than her. In fact, there's an air of cuteness and elegance to her. After feasting his eyes on Tang Zimeng, Li Lingtian cursed at his former self. I'm thinking of making a trip to the 10,000 Demons Valley. Li Lingtian answered Tang Zimeng while he cursed in his heart. This gorgeous girl was a rare sight to behold, as he was captivated by those dimples in particular. In the beginning, Li Lingtian often came here to look for Tang Zimeng, but the former had become occupied with cultivation in the last 1 to 2 years. As Li Lingtian's cultivation level pulled away from Tang Zimeng's, they both grew distant. Oh. What? You're going to 10,000 Demons Valley? Tang Zimeng expressed acknowledgement but quickly caught on. Surely Li Lingtian was joking when he said he was going to 10,000 Demons Valley. Although she was a Tier 7 warrior, she dared not simply venture into 10,000 Demons Valley by herself. Li Lingtian might be a genius disciple, but he had a late start and was only a peripheral disciple. Without pills and great skills, the cultivation level between them was worlds apart. Moreover, Tang Zimeng had a Tier 9 warrior spirit sister in Sky Cloud sect, which put her on a great advantage and at a different level from Li Lingtian. Humph, you piece of trash, stay away from Zimeng. Why don't you take a look in the mirror? Zhou Yunxiao was displeased to see Tang Zimeng and Li Lingtian engaged in a conversation. He had pursued Tang Zimeng for over a year, yet she had not spoken a word to him. There was no way he could tolerate Tang Zimeng acting close to a good-for-nothing. Ha, Zhou Yunxiao, just let it be. Don't tell me that you wouldn't dare lay hands on a good-for-nothing. All that cultivation fed to a dog. Junior sister Tang Zimeng isn't someone you can bang. Of course, that piece of trash doesn't have the right either. At this time, many disciples who were entering 10,000 Demons Valley burst into laughter after they caught a glimpse of Li Lingtian and the other two. These disciples disapproved of Zhou Yunxiao, but they too thought nothing less of a good-for-nothing like Li Lingtian. Shut up. As fellow disciples insulted Li Lingtian, the sweet smile on Tang Zimeng's face disappeared into a cold, stiffened face. A long sword appeared in her hand. Tang Zimeng was anxious about Li Lingtian's lack in cultivation level. Since this was a world where the fittest survives, so, of course, she hoped for a dauntless powerhouse as her future husband. Nevertheless, she grew up together with brother Ling Tian and could not tolerate anyone mocking him. She would rather live an uneventful life than have anyone insulting brother Ling Tian. At the thought that she had barely spent time with brother Ling Tian in the recent 1 to 2 years due to cultivation, Tang Zimeng felt guilty. Junior sister Zimeng, don't be angry. Why be angry over him? This is a world where only the fittest will survive. Why would you stand for a good-for-nothing? You're definitely a piece of trash, hiding behind a woman. Zhou Yunxiao and the other warriors were stunned. Tang Zimeng may not have a high cultivation level, but she had a tier 9 warrior spirit sister that they dared not mess with. Moreover, Tang Zimeng was a rare beauty. Coming back to his senses, Zhou Yunxiao immediately explained to Tang Zimeng in a soft tone before he darted a cold look at Li Lingtian. The more Tang Zimeng defended Li Lingtian, the more he was infuriated. Will you catch a shriveling disease if you don't speak? Li Lingtian was taken aback by Tang Zimeng's reaction. Based on his understanding of this world, this was where the law of the jungle applied and relationships meant nothing. However, he was surprised by Tang Zimeng's actions of setting herself against others in order to defend him. After all, relationships took a back seat in the name of money and power in his past life, and this world was no different. Li Lingtian's heart was filled with warmth by Tang Zimeng's behavior. There was no reason for him to turn his back on her as she had his back. As a smile deepened on his face, Li Lingtian gently took a step out and stood before Zhou Yunxiao. His cold eyes looked at Zhou Yunxiao as though he was an idiot. You're looking for death. It did not occur to Zhou Yunxiao that Li Lingtian would challenge him in front of a gorgeous girl. He was enraged to be humiliated and disrespected in front of Tang Zimeng. Swinging his long sword, Zhou Yunxiao launched a fierce blade glare towards Li Lingtian. With only a 5 yards distance between them, the blade was swung in the blink of an eye. Brother Lingtian, be careful. Although Tang Zimeng was surprised, she could not stop him in time. Moreover, her tier 6 abilities would not be able to save Li Lingtian against Zhou Yunxiao, who was at tier 8. With a pale face, Tang Zimeng's chest tightened. However, she soon found herself staring at Li Lingtian in shock while the other disciples who remained stared at Li Lingtian in fear as though they had seen a ghost. Li Lingtian single-handedly swung his sword to slice a flickering silver blade glow before he retrieved his right hand. Li Lingtian stood still as though he never moved an inch, but a dull clash was soon heard. Cling. Pftsch. Time froze on a despaired Zhou Yunxiao, whose long sword was now split in half. Besides that, his cultivation of true qi was quickly leaking from a cut that could be seen through the tear in the abdomen area of his clothes. Ah, you crippled my cultivation level. Ah. My cultivation level. The releasing sensation of his cultivation was clear to Zhou Yunxiao that his dantian was crippled. Unable to bear the weight of it, Zhou Yunxiao let out a horrifying scream. What a terrifying swing! What speed! That was a vicious blade glare. Is he still the same piece of trash? The warriors who mocked both Li Lingtian and Zhou Yunxiao earlier were completely dumbstruck. With overwhelming fear, they hung their heads low, afraid to see eye to eye with Li Lingtian. Brother Lingtian, your cultivation level. In a state of shock, Tang Zimeng's dainty mouth dropped wide open, but she cupped one hand over it. She was startled by brother Lingtian's capabilities. It was long before she returned to her senses to probe into his abilities. Was this the same brother Lingtian? The former brother Lingtian may be good to her, but he was a little weak and never had such a smooth, clean approach. Moreover, Tang Zimeng was amused at the thought of Li Lingtian's words before. She now saw Li Lingtian in a new light, as though she was seeing him for the first time. I just broke through tier 6 warrior not long ago. Li Lingtian did not keep it a secret. There was no need to conceal the truth since he was only a tier 6 warrior. His cultivation level would only improve from here anyway. Great, this is great. 6th grandfather won't oppose to us anymore. Tang Zimeng happily added. The blossoming smile on her face took Li Lingtian's breath away. Your sixth grandfather. Li Lingtian was confused and curious to learn that sixth grandfather had opposed their betrothal. Nothing, nothing. Tang Zimeng's alarm bells rang at Li Lingtian's question. Brother Lingtian would definitely blow a fuse if he were to find out. So, she immediately shook her head. Girl, tell me, what is this about? Having lived 2 lifetimes, Li Lingtian knew there was more to this little girl's action. As such, with a serious face, he asked in a soft voice. Sixth grandfather wants to betroth me to Duan Muqing. As there was no point in fooling him, Tang Zimeng told the truth. There were a few outstanding characters in Sky Cloud's sect and some of them were warrior king powerhouses. Duan Muqing was an inner sect disciple and a tier 6 warrior spirit. As this was a dog-eat-dog world, Tang Zimeng's sixth grandfather naturally wanted Tang Zimeng to marry Duan Muqing. He, I see, and what are your thoughts? After Li Lingtian had said that, he advanced forward without taking another look at Zhou Yunxiao. The law of the jungle principle ran deep within warriors, so he could only count on himself in gaining strength. Very quickly, Li Lingtian had entered 10,000 Demons Valley, disappearing from Tang Zimeng's line of vision. By the time Tang Zimeng returned to her senses, Li Lingtian was long gone. Brother Lingtian, you did that intentionally. Tang Zimeng stomped her foot and pouted her luscious lips in an alluring manner at the disappearance of Li Lingtian. Then, she darted off in the opposite direction, leaving behind the crippled Zhou Yunxiao and a few terror-stricken warriors. They held their breath in until Li Lingtian and Tang Zimeng had left the scene. What a terrifying cultivation level. Is he really a tier 6 warrior? I'm a tier 7 warrior, but I'm not certain if I can overcome that strike. Is he still the same good-for-nothing we know? It's best we distance ourselves from him before we get ourselves in trouble. It'll be fun to see how this plays out. Duan Muqing isn't one to mess with. The warriors mumbled among themselves before they left 10,000 Demons Valley. It was only right to stay away since Li Lingtian had entered 10,000 Demons Valley. After all, they did not want to risk their lives fronting with Li Lingtian. Back inside 10,000 Demons Valley, Li Lingtian came across many tier 6 and above outer sect as well as inner sect disciples who joined forces in eliminating demonic beasts while searching for medicinal supplies. Chapter 17. Chapter 17. Bright moon in soft breeze, die. At the swing of a sword, a silvery blade glow flickered and soon a level 6 armored beast was sliced in half. It was dead. Flaming divine fist, penetrate. A fist-bearing flame was thrown, burning through the air before it smashed onto a first-tier level 8 lightning leopard. The lightning leopard fell onto the ground as its body spread a fragrant aroma. Li Lingtian was a one-hit wonder throughout his journey, even with a level 8 demonic beast. Many tier 6 and 7 warriors were struck with fear at the sight of Li Lingtian's terror. This young man was a more revering existence to them than the demonic beasts. They had originally wanted to seize Li Lingtian's storage sack, but they scrambled far away after witnessing his skills. Instead, these warriors were afraid that they would be robbed by Li Lingtian. This is great. I have finally found a white jade flower, and it was of 20 years' value. He extended his arm to retrieve the white jade flower before he headed deeper in to kill more demonic beasts. He left out the materials and only grabbed the inner vitals because his storage sack had limited storage. Time went on day by day and there were now about 30 level 7 and above inner vitals in his storage sack. There were also some medicinal supplies and although they were only 10 years of value, they were enough to refine grade 1 pills. This day, Li Lingtian entered the depths of the 10,000 Demons Valley. For the past 3 days, he had continuously come across only level 9 demonic beasts, of which their inner vitals were worth more than inner vitals of other levels. What a powerful demonic chi, could this be? At that moment, an omnipotent demonic chi filled the air with the scent of aura that left people trembling. This was the repression of a superior demonic beast towards inferior demonic beasts. OB****, just my luck. Li Lingtian smiled bitterly before he hurried to a nearby stone wall. His swift body movements carried him to the top of an 11 yards tall stone wall in seconds. Then, he glanced at the gigantic demonic beast below. Earth Dragon, a second-tier level 4 demonic beast. The gray demonic beast, scaling a height of 5 yards, was an ugly sight to behold, but Li Lingtian had no thoughts on its appearance. Regardless of its looks, it was still a second-tier level 4 demonic beast. It had the strength comparable to a tier 4 warrior spirit. Demonic beasts naturally had great defense and were capable of vicious attacks. They were much stronger than human warriors, and it was more so for a second-tier earth dragon that was akin to the earth element, granting it amazing defense and powerful attacks. Fu. Spotting Li Lingtian, the earth dragon's bloodshot eyes, which was the size of a knuckle, beamed at its delicious meal. It swiftly pounced at Li Lingtian. Come bite me. Oh d***mn, how can this be? Li Lingtian let out a brash smile at the earth dragon that was jumping towards him. It was impossible for the earth dragon to leap over the 11 yards tall stone wall. However, his face turned grave soon after he made a "come bite me" gesture at the earth dragon. The earth dragon was clawing his way up the stone wall with its sharp nails, swooping towards Li Lingtian on the double. Swoosh. Swoosh. Li Lingtian's mind went blank. He had never believed the saying that pigs could fly, but neither did he believe that earth dragons could climb on stone walls. This went beyond all of his beliefs, and it was more absurd than pigs flying. Moving with the breeze technique, he continuously dodged the gray earth dragon that was hot behind his tail. It was a race between a human and a beast. Flaming Divine Fist. Wham! OF***CK, what skin is this? It's so tough. He sought an opportunity to smash his flaming divine fist in. Following a dull noise, he was surprised to find that the earth dragon was not burned to a crisp as he had imagined. Instead, his palm had absorbed the pain. Bright moon in soft breeze, slice. By borrowing strength from gravity, Li Lingtian leaped up the stone wall and repelled the force as he slashed his long sword downwards. A silvery blade glare flickered through the air. Swoosh. Roar. The vicious blade glow sliced the earth dragon's claws off, and the earth shook at the howl of the earth dragon. After all, a second-tier level 4 demonic beast was equivalent to a tier 4 warrior spirit. Astounding sword technique's vast obscure extermination. As the true chi in his body lessened, Li Lingtian knew that he would be ambushed by other warriors if he attempted an escape. So, without further delay, he circulated his true chi to forcefully unleash the astounding sword technique's second form. Immediately, a strange, vast obscure aura that carried a massive sense of destruction tore the air within a 55-yard radius. Detecting the destructive aura, the earth dragon's eyes reeked of fear. It let out a howl before it swiftly pounced at Li Lingtian. At that moment, Li Lingtian peacefully yet expressionlessly waved his arm, drawing a line with his sword as several blade shreds burst out. Tzh tzh, tzh tzh. Roar, roar. Kaboom. While sizzling crackles echoed in the air, the rarely petrified earth dragon was slammed onto a stone wall by a powerful force. As the intensity wore down, Li Lingtian had long retrieved his sword, or perhaps he never did draw his sword because the velocity was faster than the naked eye. Vast obscure extermination, I've finally managed to unleash it. Li Lingtian stared at the earth dragon's carcass with a satisfied smile. He had finally succeeded in launching the vast obscure extermination. The second form of astounding sword technique was indeed powerful in its own right. If an earth dragon could be killed in a single hit, there was no stopping him against warriors or even warrior spirits. With this move, his abilities were raised to a whole new level and warriors of any tiers would no longer pose a threat to him unless, of course, he encountered an out-of-this-world powerhouse. After adjusting his mindset, he glided down to collect the valuable materials and inner vital on the earth dragon. A second-tier level 4 demonic beast was a great find, more so an earth dragon with high defense. The skin of an earth dragon especially was worth a lot of money. Huh, my state came loose. The moment Li Lingtian was about to leave after he had bagged the earth dragon's materials, he stopped short with a baffled look on his face. The earlier battle with the earth dragon where he had unleashed the vast obscure extermination had loosened up his tier 6 warrior state. Swoosh! Transforming his body into a breeze, he swiftly left the battlefield. The activity that went on earlier would attract people to draw near. Tier 6 warrior, breakthrough. Go! Half an hour later, Li Lingtian arrived at a cave in the valley with sweat dripping down his face. With a smile, he let out a gentle cry, releasing his body of true qi to push through to tier 7. The powerful true qi channeled through and brought him to tier 7 warrior. He had succeeded in advancing to tier 7. Feeling the powerful true qi in his body, Li Lingtian observed the stark difference between a tier 6 and tier 7 warrior. Just the amount of true qi alone was 2 times more than a tier 6 warrior. Not only that, but the upgraded state also saw a boost in the quality of his true qi. Flaming Divine Fist. Wham! He demonstrated his Flaming Divine Fist. With eagerness over the violent energy, he smashed his flaming fist to a stone wall afar. Following a loud bang, a huge black hole was cracked onto the stone wall. The speed seemed to have picked up a lot. The speed of the Flaming Divine Fist in Tier 7 had almost doubled compared to when he first started, even the velocity on the circulation of true qi had increased. This meant that his skill could be launched instantaneously without the true qi circulation delaying the time. At the completion of his cultivation, Li Lingtian cautiously unleashed the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. Although it proved a great force, it exhausted far too much true qi. A strike of his fist turned a 12-acre cave into a glacier. Bright moon in soft breeze. Vast obscure extermination. Flaming Divine Fist. Ice and fire ring. Most of Li Lingtian's true qi had been exhausted by the time he had tried all of his skills. Luckily for him, he had reached Tier 7 or else a single Flaming Divine Fist would have used up almost all of his true qi. After taking all his skills for a spin, he now had half his true qi left. The intensity of his true qi was better than before. I've collected the few ingredients in full, so all that's left is to kill a level 9 demonic beast and collect its blood essence. Li Lingtian took a look inside his storage sack. He had all of the supplies needed to refine a grade 1 vitality pill. There were 7 ingredients altogether and only a bit of blood essence was needed before he could leave 10,000 Demons Valley. Hence, he left the cave and moved forth in search of first-tier demonic beasts. He was not going to refine a pill with a second-tier demonic beast's blood essence as he wanted to avoid wasting precious ingredients. Gruum. Gruum. Rumbling sounds that came from the depths of 10,000 Demons Valley echoed through heaven and earth. Startled, Li Lingtian moved in a flash. The increase of his cultivation level and ability had enhanced a sense of security in him amongst other warriors. After all, great talent had been added to his bold nature. 10 minutes later, Li Lingtian's face turned grave as he peeked inside the valley. He saw 5 youths encircling and attacking a huge demonic beast. Warrior spirit powerhouses. Hiss, they're all warrior spirits and one of them is a tier 5 warrior spirit. Li Lingtian gasped silently at the scene. All 5 warriors were warrior spirits. The lowest was a tier 2 warrior spirit while the best among them was a tier 5 warrior spirit. The besieged demonic beast was a 20-foot tall green-eyed beast. It was a second-tier level 7 demonic beast. Zhang Wei, Xiao Long, you two restrain it. I'll kill it. Zhou Tianjun saw no progression in the 5 of them laying siege on this demonic beast. In fact, this level 7 demonic beast had gotten the better of them. If this went on, they would definitely be killed by this beast. Senior brother Zhou, I'll help you. Ling Feng, you go restrain the green-eyed beast as well. Wang Hao and Zhou Tianjun exchanged glances before they hastened the speed of their hands. After they gave in their all, they immediately pulled back in preparation to launch a powerful attack against the green-eyed beast. Hurricane Fist. Earthly Chill. 10,000 vines bind, confine it. Without giving Zhou Tianjun and Wang Hao's words another thought, the situation was clear enough for Zhang Wei, Xiao Long, and Ling Feng to circulate their whole body of true qi to unleash their biggest attack without holding back. Roar. At a loud howl, the green-eyed beast pressed its huge claws forward encountering the three warrior spirits' attacks. The clash caused the forces to spread in the air. Meanwhile, the restrained green-eyed beast had momentarily lost control over its limbs. Sky-perishing spear. Kailan sword. Seizing the perfect timing, Zhou Tianjun swung his arm before a silver spear emerged. The spear emitted a heavy cloud of spiritual qi while amassing domineering energy. Chapter 18. Chapter 18. A spiritual equipment, an ordinary spiritual equipment. Zhang Wei and the rest of the group were surprised to see the spear in Zhou Tianjun's hand. It was an ordinary spiritual equipment. An ordinary spiritual equipment was barely attainable by a warrior spirit, yet Zhou Tianjun possessed one in his hand. Li Lingtian too was astonished as it was his first time seeing an ordinary spiritual equipment. It was capable of driving a mighty force in which warriors would usually find difficulty in withstanding. The drive of a spiritual equipment could penetrate through any warrior's defense. Compared to Zhou Tianjun's ordinary spiritual equipment, Wang Hao's Kailan sword was nothing. It was only a mediocre spiritual equipment, but it was still a decent weapon. Two powerful attacks were launched onto the green-eyed beast. As if it had sensed the threat that was coming its way, the eyes of the green-eyed beast were filled with ferociousness before a strange demonic qi exploded. Roar. Letting out a wail, the green-eyed beast spat out a white bead that harbored a gruesome demonic energy that was swiftly rammed towards Zhou Tianjun. Life Bond Inner Vital Attack. The five were terrified at the appearance of the white bead, especially for Zhou Tianjun, whose face turned into despair. To begin with, a demonic beast was much stronger than a human, so the life bond inner vital attack of a second-tier level 7 demonic beast was definitely devastating. Guruum. Ah, ah, ah. The entire valley shook at the sound of a loud crash. With a glow of destruction, the white inner vital clashed violently onto Zhou Tianjun and turned him into ashes in a blink of an eye. Meanwhile, the other four warrior spirits were thrown back by the impact. On the other hand, the ordinary spiritual equipment struck the green-eyed beast. With an 11-foot-tall spear penetrating through its head, the green-eyed beast breathed its last breath. The residue impact swept across the valley, turning the trees and flowers into ashes. The four warrior spirits fell onto the ground, but not before they spat out a mouthful of blood. Swoosh. A sudden sound broke through the sky and interrupted the peace in the valley as a white figure fluttered through the air. Bright moon in soft breeze, kill. Flaming divine fist, explode. Vast obscure extermination, die. At a flicker of the blade glare followed by a flaming fist, exterminating blade shreds burst out altogether in the blink of an eye and crashed onto three of the warrior spirits. Ah! Following the sound of screams, the three warrior spirits perished. You're despicable. Ling Feng was without an ounce of true qi in his body. The residue impact from the green-eyed beast's inner vital may not be fatal, but it had wiped out all of his true qi and he was now left with none. All he saw was a young warrior who had become a hunter and was here to steal their thunder after all the hard work they had put in. Humph, there's no such thing as despicable in this world, Li Lingtian coldly blurted. Killing for treasure was the norm in a dog-eat-dog world. Moreover, he merely waited for an opportunity to strike. It was not his problem to deal with if they were unaware of other dangers approaching them while they were engaged in battle. Flaming divine fist, die. After that, Li Lingtian pushed forth a flaming divine fist, prompting a violent stir in the air. A tier 3 warrior spirit, despite without true qi, should not be underestimated. Wham! Although the flaming divine fist crashed down in a loud bang, Li Lingtian found himself with a hardened expression. His flaming divine fist came to nothing as it crashed onto the ground, but at this point, Ling Feng had disappeared out of sight. Hee, I knew of your existence. You're just a warrior, nothing less than an ant before me. Kailan sword, eliminate. Ling Feng stood erected on the valley's stone wall, showing no signs of injury. With a body of true qi in its prime, he drew the Kailan sword and sliced a white light through the sky. Ah, a miscalculation. Instant true qi recovery, not bad. Ice vitality divine fist, freeze him. Surprised, Li Lingtian smiled bitterly from within. Who would have thought Ling Feng had a treasure that was capable of regaining his true qi in an instant? Seeing a Tier 3 warrior spirit's blow in full force, Li Lingtian realized that he could not afford to be careless. A Tier 7 warrior like him was nothing against a Tier 3 warrior spirit who had possession of a mediocre spiritual equipment. With firm resolute, Li Lingtian spun the immemorial ice crystal in him and circulated the ice vitality divine fist to launch his attack. Immediately, the temperature plunged, turning everything, including the air within a 110-yard radius in the valley, into a glacier. The blade glare fired by the Kailan sword too solidified in the static air, slowing its speed down like a crawling ant. Ice Vitality Warrior Soul, it's impossible. You have a Firepath Warrior Soul, how can you have Ice Vitality Warrior Soul as well? It had never crossed Ling Feng's mind that this young man could launch such a powerful attack, that the entire valley had been turned to glacier. Even a warrior spirit with an Ice Vitality Warrior Soul was incapable of achieving this. Since this young man had unleashed Firepath attacks, he must have a Firepath Warrior Soul, yet he had just demonstrated an Ice Vitality Warrior Soul's attack. Ling Feng's mind completely went blank from the shock. Die. Li Lingtian himself too was taken aback by how his Ice Vitality Divine Fist had frozen the vicinity of over 100 yards. For his first time at unleashing the Ice Vitality Divine Fist, it was quite a feat. Meanwhile, he hastened the speed of his Ice Vitality Divine Fist and blasted it at Ling Feng. He was unaffected inside the glacier because he was the creator of this phenomenon. Ah! Ling Feng turned into an ice sculpture and all of his meridians were frozen. With a blow to the ice sculpture, it was smashed to pieces. Consequently, Ling Feng dropped dead to the ground. PFT. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Li Lingtian staggered about. Suddenly, the glacier in the valley disappeared and resumed to the atmosphere as it was before. He had sustained some injuries after releasing a few powerful skills consecutively, which included the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. So it seemed like the Ice Vitality Divine Fist is an Onyx tier skill that can't be controlled by a warrior. The immemorial ice crystal is still too much for me to handle. Li Lingtian thought to himself before he stashed the warrior spirit storage sacks and sorted out the earth dragon's materials. In 10 minutes, Li Lingtian had then left the valley and advanced afar. PFTTZH. Sitting in a cave with his legs crossed, Li Lingtian spat out another mouthful of blood. However, his cheeks gradually regained its pink tint. He had overdone it with the Ice Vitality Divine Fist. The force might be great, but he did not have total control over it. After smoothing out the bruises, his injuries had stabilized. He then extended his arm to open the storage sacks and took out the properties that belonged to the warrior spirits he had eliminated earlier. These 5 storage sacks were treasures of warrior spirit powerhouses. Li Lingtian made an inventory and found that he had bagged over 2,000 spiritual stones, 1 mediocre spiritual equipment, Kailan sword, and an ordinary spiritual equipment, Sky Perishing Spear. The rest were a few inner vitals, low-grade pills, several skills, and some common weapons. There are some good pills. He looked at the several jade bottles in his hands that contained dozens of pills. These were just enough for him to use. Apart from that, the 2 spiritual equipment were of value to him, such as the mediocre spiritual equipment. Kailan sword was a great replacement for his long sword. Oh, I see. It's this little thing. There were 3 blue pills in a purple jade bottle. Based on the information from the pill art, he recognized these pills were blue dust pills. These pills were used to regain a warrior spirit's true qi. Li Lingtian recalled the incident where even after he had launched an attack on Ling Feng, the latter had managed to regain his true qi from complete exhaustion. The reason behind his instant true qi recovery was this blue dust pill. Stalactite of 1,000 years value was the main ingredient to refining a blue dust pill. Limited to 1 usage a day, this blue dust pill could regain a warrior spirit's true qi. Warriors too were not restricted from its effects, but it would be ineffective on any powerhouses above the warrior spirit state. So after storing his spoils, Li Lingtian began to cultivate. There were also some pills he had collected from the warrior spirits that were suitable in treating his injuries, and he chewed on them like candy. An hour later, Li Lingtian opened his eyes. His injuries had completely healed while his true qi had reached its prime. Sky-perishing spear, refine. Li Lingtian took out the sky-perishing spear and hurled it to the air while he gestured a few techniques. He was tempering the treasure. 1. Which was basic knowledge to any warrior. With this, the remaining qi on the sky-perishing spear was wiped out by Li Lingtian's divine mindfulness. He then shot a drop of blood essence onto the spear, but as the blood touched the spear, the sky-perishing spear trembled and put up a fight. Tzh tzh, tzh tzh. Clang. After a string of noises followed by a loud ring, the sky-perishing spear simmered down. Letting out a satisfied smile, Li Lingtian connected his divine mindfulness with the sky-perishing spear. Join me and you'll be stronger. An ordinary spiritual equipment was not only unattainable for warrior disciples, but warrior spirits as well. Only a handful of warrior spirits were in possession of a spiritual equipment. Kailan sword, refine. Li Lingtian repeated the same tempering process in refining the Kailan sword. As the Kailan sword was a mediocre spiritual equipment, it was easier to temper than the sky-perishing spear. He had only used the most common weapon while he cultivated the Amber Tier's superior astounding sword technique. With this Kailan sword, the force following the sword technique should multiply. Days went by and in a blink of an eye, he had been in the 10,000 Demons Valley for 2 months now. His current cultivation level had reached the Tier 7 peak warrior state. Pairing his Tier 7's ability and powerful skills with the Kailan sword and sky-perishing spear had enabled him to single-handedly take down even a Tier 2 level 5 or 6 demonic beast. The 6 storage sacks increased and they were almost filled with inner vitals and ingredients. Now, he had more than enough supplies to refine grade 1 vitality pills and spirit binding pills. Today should be the 7th of June. There are 3 more months until the sect's grand tournament. With a smile on his face, Li Lingtian gazed towards the direction of the sect. It was time to return. Lan Binhui's storage sack had a blue fleecing fruit that could advance him a tier further in cultivation. Besides that, he also had 5 spirit binding pills in his possession. For the time being, these pills were sufficient to raise his cultivation level, but it was also time that he began refining pills. Chapter 19. Chapter 19. Sitting in a room in a cross-legged position, Li Lingtian's face was drenched with trails of sweat. It had been a month since his return from 10,000 Demons Valley. In that month, he had continuously cultivated with vitality pills, leading his advance from Tier 7 to Tier 8 warrior state. He swallowed the blue fleecing fruit which enabled the powerful spiritual qi to wreak havoc in his body. This blue fleecing fruit was more potent than vitality pills in many ways. Li Lingtian continuously circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to convert the spiritual qi into true qi before it circled back to his dantian. Tier 9 warrior, breakthrough. He yelled as his body's true qi reached the peak of Tier 8. Under the influence of the heaven and earth reincarnation, his true qi swiftly charged onto Tier 9. Thump. The thud came from within his body and it was so soft, only he could hear it. The moment this sound was heard, his true qi had never been so smooth as it circulated in a hastened flow. I made it. Li Lingtian's smile deepened. Advancing to Tier 9 from Tier 8 was the hardest stage in warrior state. Hence, he had saved the blue fleecing fruit until now. After many vitality pills and a blue fleecing fruit, he finally made it to the highest level, Tier 9 warrior state. In fact, he had used up all the vitality pills he had. The grand tournament, here I come. With his lips curled into a deeper smile, he ventured back into cultivation and began to stabilize his state. It was 8 days later when he finally secured his Tier 9 warrior state. After he had stabilized his state, he then made preparations to refine pills. Pill refinery still remained his main priority. Even the best of geniuses required the aid of pills. Although he was the most curious and fascinated about the blue dust pill, he did not have the formula. Moreover, its main ingredient was a 1,000-year stalactite. The stalactite alone was inaccessible to a warrior like him. 1 white jade flower. 1 vitality control grass. 1 purple string fruit. 1 narcissus needle. 1 aerial wind grass. 3 drops of first tier level 9 demonic beasts blood essence. 1 first tier level 9 inner vital. Li Lingtian began by selecting the ingredients. A good apothecary made careful selections to avoid any imperfections on the ingredients as it had a direct effect on the pill's quality and refinery success rate. Rise. He took out his pill tripod as well as around 10 mediocre spiritual stones. A flame appeared and sparked the spiritual stones to burn a white flame under the pill tripod. White jade flower. Vitality control grass. Purple string fruit. Ingredients. After the ingredients were hurled into the pill tripod. The first ingredient dissolved into liquid before a second ingredient was tossed into the mix. For Li Lingtian's first attempt, his technique may be ingenious but his jarring approach was a telltale sign that he was a newbie. Nevertheless, great apothecaries would have their jaws dropped if they ever feasted their eyes on this rather ingenious technique. Bang! I failed. The refinery was a bust. He had failed in his first attempt in pill refinery. Bang! Fail! Bang! Fail! Li Lingtian was baffled after he was led to 3 consecutive failures when he added in the inner vital. However, Li Lingtian was not worked up by the failed attempts. He knew well that regardless of anything, countless failures would eventually lead to success when it came to pill refinery. Let me try refining the inner vital first. The reason behind each failure was due to the extended time in refining the inner vital while the concoction sat for a long period. By then, the brew had burnt. The inner vital was the hardest to refine and this was also the crucial key to why he missed the boat. With the help of his 21st century wisdom, this was not an issue to him. Formulas were fixed but people were not. The formula came from the experience of others so there was no reason as to why he could not change the rules around it. At that thought, Li Lingtian initiated his divine mindfulness to fork out some spiritual stones. He was going to try his hand at refining again. However, this time was different from the last. He reversed the order by beginning with refining the inner vital first. Swish swish, swish swish. After dissolving into concoction in the pill tripod, the inner vital started to spread a heavy demonic energy. He then hurled a white jade flower into the mix. Soon, 4 ingredients had been added and it stirred a tremendous change in the pill tripod. Swish. With the ingredients and inner vital melted into liquid, the last step was the demonic beast's blood essence. Pouring 3 drops of the blood essence in, the concoction immediately went into overdrive. Indeed. I knew this issue wasn't going to bring me down. Li Lingtian may have a smile on his face but he kept his emotions in check. One's mentality was most important to an apothecary. Success. The pill tripod tipped open with a soft blast, giving out a fresh medicinal aroma. After taking a look inside the tripod, Li Lingtian was filled with thrill. Peerless Vitality Pill. D*MN, that's awesome. Li Lingtian's mind went blank for long while at the sight of 13 pure white pills inside the tripod. Although it was his first in pill refinery, the pill art was the most mystical pill refinery treasury in ancient history. The techniques inside were not only extraordinary, but they also had their own unique comprehension and insights on the course of refinery. Yet, he had managed to achieve peerless for this grade 1 vitality pill, considering a peerless vitality pill was out of this world. He soon came to realize that the pills refined with the mystical technique were exceptional because he had used a grade 3 refinery method on a grade 1 pill. In this world, pills were classed as common, superior, or peerless. Pills were normally of the common quality while superior and peerless qualities were unheard of. A superior grade 1 pill was as effective as a substandard grade 2 pill. The effects of a peerless pill, on the other hand, went beyond 2 higher grades due to the absence of impurity in it. The significance of this evolved pill was far above and beyond the imagination of warriors. It had never occurred to him that his first success in pill refinery was of peerless quality. It was an outstanding achievement. Let me try this. Tossing a pill into his mouth, he felt the powerful drug exploding in his body. Although he had never taken a spirit-binding pill, this grade 1 vitality pill was definitely in the same class as the spirit-binding pill. However, regardless of the quality of a grade 1 pill, warriors were capable of digesting it, but the efficacy was definitely more evident than a warrior using a spirit-binding pill. As the strong drug effect began to revolve in his body, Li Lingtian circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to convert the effect into true qi. Half an hour later, the conversion of the vitality pill's drug effect to true qi was complete. The drug effect had pushed his Tier 9 cultivation to its peak, leaving him a step away from perfection. Tier 9 Peak Warrior. The imperial family's royal princess. Li Lingtian let out a faint smile. These were the words of Nangong Mingyue when they came face to face a few months ago. In a period of several months, he too became a Tier 9 Peak Warrior. Even an outer sect elite disciple could not measure up to Li Lingtian's abilities. With 2 spiritual equipment in hand, he could take up a gauntlet against warrior spirits. Let me continue. The true qi in his body flowed at a slow pace after achieving Tier 9 peak in cultivation. If his meridians of true qi were like a river before, they were now an ocean of surging true qi. There was still time left before the grand tournament for him to enforce the pill art. Now that he was a Tier 9 peak warrior, other grade 1 pills were no longer of use to him and only his peerless pills yielded a result. If he wanted to advance to warrior spirit state, he needed the spirit binding pill. Breaking through to spirit warrior state would be a piece of cake if he could refine the spirit binding pill to peerlessness. Even if peerless spirit binding pills were out of reach, he must at least refine it to a common or superior quality. In a repeated cycle of heating the tripod, refinery, and success, the ingredients for vitality pills were quickly exhausted. Nevertheless, Li Lingtian's stock on pills began to pile up. Grade 2 Spirit Binding Pill, success. Li Lingtian became adept in his techniques after 2 weeks of refining grade 1 vitality pills. The exquisite technique and unique refining process had led to better quality pills and shorter amounts of time spent on refinery. Finally, when Li Lingtian managed to refine his first tripod of spirit binding pills, he was all smiles. These are superior spirit binding pills. There were 8 superior spirit binding pills. Different from grade 1 pills, refining grade 2 pills was on a whole different level. It required accumulated experience, and despite mastering exquisite techniques, experience was imperative. After a thrill of excitement, Li Lingtian stored the pills as well as the remaining ingredients and pill tripod into his storage sack. He straightened out his clothes before he headed out. Chapter 20. Chapter 20. In Sky Cloud Sect, the peripheral and outer sect disciples stuck together. The area where they cultivated and lay their heads may be apart, but the disciples were normally found together. With a smile on his face, Li Lingtian left the room and walked towards the square in the outer sect. He had quite a number of inner vitals to exchange for spiritual stones. Warriors were seen cultivating around the square while some were taking a break in groups of 3s or 4s. The welfare chamber was at the edge of the square, so one had to pass through the square in order to get there. At that moment, Li Lingtian was taking a leisure stroll. "Huh, isn't this our senior brother Li?" Following the mocking comment, a figure quickly came before Li Lingtian, sized him and gave him a scornful look. Zhang Tian was a genius among the peripheral disciples who had better talent than Li Lingtian, but both of them had achieved Tier 10 peak warrior apprentice state at the same time. Zhang Tian had always wanted to gain the upper hand over Li Lingtian, yet only landed neck to neck with him. When the duo attempted their leap forward to a higher state, Li Lingtian failed while Zhang Tian advanced to warrior state and became an outer sect disciple. The advancement earned him pills and spiritual stones to develop to a Tier 4 warrior in less than a year. After returning from isolated cultivation, Zhang Tian was gratified to receive news that Li Lingtian could never become a warrior. Though, it was a pity that he had yet encountered Li Lingtian to humiliate him, until now. "Junior brother Zhang, is this the piece of trash you were talking about? He's indeed a good-for-nothing. Don't a good-for-nothing like you bring shame to Sky Cloud's sect by remaining here? Haven't you given up?" Soon, the few disciples who were with Zhang Tian sized Li Lingtian up. As Li Lingtian was a Tier 9 peak warrior, they could not detect his cultivation level, corroborating with the fact that Li Lingtian was a good-for-nothing. "Will you die if you don't speak?" Li Lingtian glanced back at these warrior disciples with disdain. Then, with a smile on his face, he trod ahead. He did not have time for these Tier 4 and 5 warriors. Gamut, you piece of trash. Who do you think you are? I am a Tier 4 warrior while you're nothing. How dare you act arrogant in front of me? I'll spare your life if you come over here and bow to me 3 times. Taken aback by Li Lingtian's words, Zhang Tian blew a fuse in the presence of smiling faces. "I'm in a good mood, so, you annoying flies, get lost." Li Lingtian's smile deepened at sight of Zhang Tian and his group blocking his way. His cold eyes swept past all of them. During this time, many of the disciples in the square looked their way. These peripheral and outer sect disciples hated to miss out on the fun and wanted in on the action. Sigh, if he's a piece of trash, what's considered a genius then? A Tier 6 warrior disciple looked towards Li Lingtian with fear but, too, gloated at the misfortune that was to come for Zhang Tian and his party. He had witnessed Li Lingtian's tactics against a Tier 9 warrior and a warrior spirit in the life or death canyon. These trash had nothing on Li Lingtian. "Senior brother Zhang Tian, teach him a lesson. Why don't you take a guess on how long the good-for-nothing can last in battle? Senior brother Zhang Tian, please show mercy. Don't kill him, he's an aristocrat of the empire after all." Countless disciples gathered around in heated discussion. Some even called out to Zhang Tian, for him to teach Li Lingtian a lesson. This was a world of survival of the fittest. Li Lingtian may be a genius before, but now that he was a good-for-nothing, he was held in contempt and became the target to be made fun of. "Hee hee. You good-for-nothing, I'll count to 3. You can either kneel down or go all the way down." Zhang Tian was swelling with pride to hear the disciples addressing him as a senior. With his head held high, he sneered at Li Lingtian. "You have 3 seconds to kneel down to me or forever rest on your backs." The taunting eyes of countless disciples caused Li Lingtian's expression to stiffen. In this dog-eat-dog world, only the strongest would be respected. He did not transmigrate all the way here only to live a cowardly life. Whoa! Amid the uproar, the spectating disciples were dumbfounded. For a good-for-nothing to speak that way to a warrior, he must be either out of his mind or had given up on life. 3. Without hesitation, Li Lingtian coldly blurted. 1. Rest eternally then. He swung his arm and drew out the Kailan sword to strike a chilling glow. By the time the chilling glare disappeared, Li Lingtian was walking away without giving the 4 warriors on the ground another glance. Ah! Ah! Ugh! As cries of Zhang Tian's group rang in their ears, the other disciples were gobsmacked. A good-for-nothing had crippled 4 warriors, yet no one saw how Li Lingtian did it. Is this what you call a good-for-nothing? Is he for real? Is there such a thing as a powerful piece of trash? What is a genius then? He only counted 2 numbers before making a move. This isn't fair. Although the disciples in the square had returned to their senses, they were still in shock. They could not help but quiver in fear as they watched Li Lingtian's receding figure. Fortunately for them, they did not drive Li Lingtian up a wall. I make the rules, so I'll do as I please, Li Lingtian replied dully before he walked towards the welfare chamber. The earlier incident may be merely a minor affair to Li Lingtian, but it was a cliffhanger for the many peripheral and outer sect disciples. Not many of them knew about the incidents where Li Lingtian had defeated a few warrior disciples as well as Yang Tianfeng. Now that this had happened in the square, the majority of disciples had first-hand experienced Li Lingtian's capabilities. They were all curious about how a good-for-nothing was able to defeat all odds. Arriving at the welfare chamber, Li Lingtian exchanged all of his inner vitals and materials for spiritual stones. However, instead of Zhu Zicheng, the trade was hosted by a warrior spirit. This was because the items Li Lingtian traded were mostly materials of second-tier demonic beasts, and it did not fall on Zhu Zicheng's jurisdiction. These are from the demonic beasts you killed. Wang Tianzong turned solemn at the content reveal of Li Lingtian's storage sack. He could not have killed these demonic beasts himself. These were mostly inner vitals and materials of second-tier demonic beasts. Only a handful of them belonged to first-tier demonic beasts. Is there a need for senior brother to learn the source of these materials and inner vitals? Li Lingtian asked. Although Wang Tianzong was infuriated by this warrior disciple's confrontation, he did not possess the authority to question the origins of these materials. Darting a cold stare at Li Lingtian, Wang Tianzong began to sort the inner vitals. 21 first-tier inner vitals. 37 second-tier inner vitals. It would be 9,500 mediocre spiritual stones. Wang Tianzong made an inventory of the materials before he responded. He then turned his gaze to Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian nodded without uttering a word. The inner vital of below first-tier level 5 demonic beast was 10 apiece, while level 5 and above was 100 spiritual stones. It was 200 spiritual stones for the inner vital that ranked less than second-tier level 5, the same principles applied for the other materials. Wang Tianzong did not rip him off. Many warriors were in conversation about the grand tournament when Li Lingtian made his way out of the welfare chamber with 9,500 mediocre spiritual stones. The inner sect and outer sect disciples would be taking part in the grand tournament. I heard that the peripheral disciples who had reached the warrior stage will become outer sect disciples in the upcoming tournament. The top 10 outer sect disciples will advance to the inner sect. The real competition is still between the inner sect disciples. The inner sect disciples are fighting to rank high in the sect. The higher the ranking, the better the resources, so of course, it's going to be a fierce competition. It's a shame I'm in the outer sect, I don't have a chance to go into the inner sect. However, the grand tournament this time is for the disciples to fight for a spot to go to Hidden Dragon Isle. The Hidden Dragon Isle is opened once every century, and this is that year. It's no wonder that the grand tournament is moved ahead by a month. It must be for the Hidden Dragon Isle. It's said that only warriors below the age of 30 can enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Anyone older than 30 would be blasted to smithereens by the structure inside. Yeah, but Sky Cloud's sect only has a quota for 200 disciples. There's only 200 spots, yet there are 150 inner sect warrior spirit geniuses. That leaves the remaining quota up for grabs by other disciples. The faces of many disciples engaged in conversations lit up in excitement. They were itching to try their hand and show off their skills. I see. I must secure a spot to go to the Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian stopped at his tracks after picking up on the disciples' discussion. The Hidden Dragon Isle was the most magical standalone dimension in Eastern Spirit Greenland, and it was opened once every century. The countless treasures and medicine supplies in the aisle satisfied the need for ingredients to refine higher-graded pills. However, opportunity and danger came hand in hand. After all, the existence of valuable medicinal supplies attracted dangerous demonic beasts, unknown danger, as well as fellow men that would kill for treasure. Opened once every century, the rich spiritual chi in the aisle nourished many valuable medicinal supplies, prompting gruesome demonic beasts and many elite forces to chisel their way in. However, concerned that this resource would be taken over by other forces and for the balance within forces, the warrior leaders from the 4 great empires in eastern Spirit Greenland came to an agreement to restrict the headcount to no more than 10,000. In Sky Dragon Empire alone, there were the 4 super forces and many reclusive families. The quota of 10,000 was simply too little. Sky Cloud's sect may be powerful, but it was only an omnipotent existence in Sky Dragon Empire. The sect was still a distance from the super sects in other empires. Hence, they only managed to obtain 200 spots. Warriors who were below the age of 30 could step foot into the Hidden Dragon Isle, whereas those past the age of 30 would be eliminated by the stricture at the dimensional entrance. Warrior King, Warriors Ascendants, and even Warrior Emperors were no exception to this restriction. No one dared to take the risk. The highest tier warrior within the 30 years old was at most a Warrior King, yet there were 4th and 5th tier demonic beasts prowling around the isle. They were a dangerous presence in the isle. Chapter 21. Chapter 21. Hee, someone's looking for you, Senior Brother Li. While Li Lingtian was in deep thought, a loud and cheerful voice rang out and interrupted his concentration. Li Lingtian recognized who it was without even having to look at him. It could not have been anyone other than Shweta. Li Lingtian had not encountered Shweta and the other 2 people ever since he had been in wall-facing cliff for reflection. Who's looking for me? There was a puzzled look on Li Lingtian's face when he looked at Shweta and Shangguan Linger before he realized that the girl looked more beautiful and charming now. Junior sister Shangguan is looking for you. She has been dragging me along this entire time to look for you, and we finally found you. Shweta let out a gleeful chuckle as he pointed at Shangguan Linger, who was beside him. Soon after that, he hurriedly stepped away while Shangguan Linger remained far away from him. You! Shangguan Linger's cheeks turned rosy before she glared at Shweta angrily for a while. Junior sister Linger, can I help you? Something faintly stirred in Li Lingtian's heart when he saw how Shangguan Linger was behaving. This little girl was extremely fascinating despite not being as noble or as threatening as Nangong Mingyue. Although Shangguan Linger was not as adorable or gorgeous as Tang Zimeng, she was beautiful in a unique and reserved kind of way. No, I was just wondering if Senior Brother Li was going to hunt demonic beasts at the Sky Mountains. Upon noticing that Li Lingtian was gazing at her, Shangguan Linger's heart raced. Moreover, her voice had turned much softer now, like a mosquito's buzz. Nobody else could hear her. Waves of emotion stirred in the girl's heart as she recalled what Li Lingtian had previously done for her at the Life or Death Canyon. Not only had she become extremely curious about this senior brother since then, but she had also felt rather depressed during that period of not seeing Li Lingtian. Hence, she sought out Shweta so they could look for Li Lingtian together. I'm not going to hunt demonic beasts at the Sky Mountains for now. Li Lingtian did not hesitate at all because naturally, his current self would not go to the Sky Mountains to kill the demonic beasts. Instead, he was cultivating several skills so that he could be included in the quota to enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Several days ago, I was greatly rewarded for encountering a surge of beasts at the Sky Mountains, and I managed to exchange them for more than 1,000 spiritual stones. Here, this pill is for you. Shweta took a jade bottle out and passed it to Li Lingtian while Shangguan Linger nodded to gesture that Shweta was right. It was also an indication for Li Lingtian to accept the pill. However, they were surprised when Li Lingtian pushed the jade bottle back at them. He then took 2 pill bottles out of his storage stack and passed them to Shweta and Shangguan Linger. What is this? Shocked, both Shweta and Shangguan Linger stared at Li Lingtian in a stunned manner. They had no idea what he was trying to say. I've managed to refine this pill recently. You guys should take it and use it. Li Lingtian chuckled before he stuffed the jade bottle in Shangguanlinger and Shueda's hands. Did you really refine this pill? You must be joking. Since when were you an apothecary? Shangguanlinger and Shueda were still stunned since everyone knew that you had to be a Tier 1 apothecary to even refine the most basic pills. Li Lingtian's cultivation level was profound despite only being 14 years old, but the two of them still could not believe that he was an apothecary. Why don't you guys take a look? There was a faint smile on Li Lingtian's face when he looked at his two friends. The pill that he had refined was definitely not something that an ordinary apothecary could imitate. This is a vitality pill. You've really managed to refine a peerless pill. No, this is a high-quality, peerless pill. It's a peerless vitality pill. Shangguanlinger and Shueda opened the jade bottle in disbelief. When they looked at the pill inside, the pill even had a hint of Li Lingtian's spiritual qi on it, which proved that he had truly refined it. Shueda was instantly stunned because the quality of this pill had exceeded his expectations. Indeed, this pill was several times more superior than the vitality pills that were distributed by the sect. His expression changed greatly when he eventually discovered that this vitality pill was actually a peerless pill. Shueda felt as though he had seen a ghost because a peerless pill was considered a myth throughout the divine martial continent. Since it had never appeared before, nobody would have imagined that they would see it here. Why do you look so stunned? It's just a vitality pill. Li Lingtian laughed. He knew what a peerless pill represented, but he was not aiming for a mere vitality pill. Rather, he wanted a more impressive and higher quality pill. Otherwise, this would be an insult to the ancient pill art. Just a vitality pill. This is a peerless pill. Do you even know what that means? It's a legend throughout the divine martial continent. Shueda looked defeated as he stared silently at Li Lingtian. Was he insane? He had refined a peerless pill, yet he was saying such ridiculous things. The arrogant top-notch apothecaries would be terribly shocked if they had witnessed this. Senior Brother Li, are you actually an apothecary? Are you a great apothecary? Shangguanlinger's face was filled with admiration as she looked at Li Lingtian and asked that question in a gentle voice. Senior Brother Li was a mysterious and unpredictable person. Not only did he have a terrifying cultivation level, but he was also able to refine a peerless pill. What's the big deal about great apothecaries? You can bet your *SS that I'm not one of them. Li Lingtian briefly pouted before he spoke disdainfully. Although he was only an apothecary now, it had barely taken him 1 or 2 months of fumbling around on his own before he could refine his own pills. If all he did was simply rely on the ancient pill art to achieve this result, great apothecaries were not that big of a deal to him. Hee, we won't have to worry about pills anymore. I guess we were too blind to notice that the person right next to us could refine peerless pills all this while. We should just get rid of these useless vitality pills. Shueda got so riled up that he picked up the original vitality pill in which he had gotten in exchange. He was about to fling it outside in an exaggerated manner, but he suddenly placed it back down. I'm going to sell it because this should be worth a few spiritual stones, Shueda reluctantly said as he kept the jade bottle. Hee. As Shangguanlinger saw how Shueda was acting, she giggled playfully. Her enchanting laugh was enough to change the atmosphere completely. Hurry up and cultivate because the grand tournament is about to begin. Li Lingtian immediately walked to his room once he was done speaking. He had to quickly undergo his cultivation so that it would peak in time for the grand tournament. The atmosphere at the sect grew livelier with each passing day because the sect grand tournament was about to begin soon. The peripheral disciples were about to become outer sect disciples, whereas the current outer sect disciples were competing to become inner sect disciples. Meanwhile, the inner sect disciples were competing to rank higher so that they would be included in the quota to enter the Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian was refining pills in his room, cultivating the Flaming Divine Fist, Ice Vitality Divine Fist, Astounding Sword Technique, and Sky Perishing Spear. I've achieved perfection as a Tier 9 warrior. A satisfied look appeared on his face before he glanced outside. He then walked outside energetically and gazed at the sunny morning sky. The radiant sun had illuminated the whole area. While he was walking on the limestone-paved path, Li Lingtian smiled faintly as he looked at the numerous disciples who were happy and excited. All the disciples were heading toward the Sky Cloud Square, which was almost half a mile wide in terms of length and width. The Sky Cloud sect used this square to hold their events. The square sat in the middle of the SEC's 4 mountain peaks, which was also the center of the Sky Cloud sect. At this time, the square was already filled with people within a radius of 1 mile. It was certainly quite amazing that the Sky Cloud sect had more than 10,000 disciples. Li Lingtian briefly scanned the square when he arrived. There were 4 gigantic arenas in the center of the square, and each arena was about 33 feet tall, 66 feet wide, and 66 feet long. Those 4 arenas were used for the disciples' competitions. On the opposite side of the 4 arenas stood a 300 feet tall platform with more than 100 seats. Everyone knew that those seats were reserved for the judges and organizers, as well as for the sect elders. I've heard that numerous top-notch genius senior brothers and sisters are going to participate in this tournament. We're in for a good show. It seems like senior sister Lan Yuyen has already become a Tier 6 warrior spirit powerhouse. I don't think anyone in the inner sect would stand a chance against her. This is probably the first time such a thing has happened. Indeed, senior sister Lan Yuyen is amazing because she's a top-notch genius in the inner sect. However, I've heard that senior brother Dongfang Qingyu has also achieved the Tier 6 warrior spirit. Both of them could end up competing against each other. You've forgotten someone. Who? Senior brother Duanmu Qing. He's achieved the Tier 6 warrior spirit too. Oh, I should have said that I have high hopes for senior brother Duanmu Qing. How ignorant and inexperienced of you. Murong Tianjiao is the strongest. Xiao Tianba is the most impressive one to me. Numerous disciples were having an enthusiastic discussion in the square. The individuals whom they had mentioned were the most skilled geniuses among the inner sect for the past 5 years. They were considered as the most amazing geniuses throughout the entire Eastern Spirit Greenland because they had managed to achieve Tier 5 warrior spirit despite only being 20 years old. Only held once every 5 years, this competition was also a chance for the elite disciples to change their positions. Everyone who had spent the last 5 years honing their skills would wish to achieve instant fame here. Boom, boom, boom. A loud banging noise rang out as the sound of drums echoed into the sky. All of the Sky Cloud sect's disciples had heard it clearly, including the disciples who were deep in the Sky Mountains. Chapter 22. Chapter 22. It's the earth-shattering drum. Numerous disciples stared at a gigantic drum in the sky which had a radius of about 33 feet. This huge drum was crafted with the skin of Tier 5 demonic beasts, and the sound of it could travel across a distance of more than 15 miles. The Sky Cloud sect's disciples would gather at the Sky Cloud Square whenever they heard the sound of this drum, except those who were undergoing isolated cultivation. They were not allowed to come over. Once the drum had sounded 9 times, the entire square became quiet as many disciples continued to rush there. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 30,000 people in the square. At that moment, around 30 powerhouses shot out from the depths of the Sky Cloud sect. Li Lingtian was secretly shaken when he felt their powerful vigor. Every single warrior spirit powerhouse had achieved a Tier 5 warrior spirit. The 30 warrior spirit powerhouses approached the tall platform and stood on top of it. Following that, 12 silhouettes fluttered over before everyone realized that they were all Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouses. Once the Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouses had arrived, 4 elders who were about 50 years old flew over as well. The powerful qi that was emitted from the elders' bodies produced such intense and endless pressure that gave people an oppressed feeling. Warrior King powerhouses. They're really Warrior King powerhouses. Deep down, Li Lingtian was incredibly shocked. Since warrior spirit powerhouses were already extremely strong, he had never imagined that 4 warrior king powerhouses would appear as well. Warrior kings were certainly mighty existences. It seemed like the sect had placed a lot of importance on the tournament this time because they had brought out their warrior king powerhouses. Naturally, this was done to ensure that everything was fair when they were examining the disciples below them. For the sake of the sect, they could not allow any geniuses to be overlooked. I, Long Tian, am the organizer of this tournament. I swear that I will judge this tournament in a fair and impartial manner. Elder Zhang Ling, Elder Qin Tian, Elder Gumu, and Elder Bai Shui will examine and supervise you together as well. Once all the powerhouses on the platform had sat down, a Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouse in the middle stood up and announced loudly. Being a Tier 9 warrior spirit powerhouse, his voice echoed throughout the entire square. The tournament will be split into 4 stages. Warriors who are Tier 5 and below will join the first stage, while those who are Tier 6 to Tier 8 will join the second stage. Next, Tier 9 warriors will join the third stage while warrior spirit disciples will join the fourth stage. The top 10 individuals in each stage will then be allowed to join the next stage's tournament to compete to win a spot among the top 100 in the end. An abundance of prizes are in store for the top 100 disciples, and the top 50 disciples at every stage will also be awarded. Registration starts now. Long Tian spoke loudly and clearly as he repeated the tournament rules again. All the disciples were extremely shocked because they had never imagined for the format of the tournament to be different this time. As soon as Long Tian had finished making his announcement, the disciples below started to register themselves at the respective areas, according to their stages. Their cultivation level and status would be checked during registration to prevent Tier 9 warriors from going to lower stages. Otherwise, it would be unfair for the others. Senior Brother Li, we've finally found you. A crisp voice rang out before a sweet aroma instantly drifted over. When Li Lingtian turned around to look, he realized that Xuede, Shengguanlinger, and Qing Yun had arrived. Aren't you 3 going to line up for the tournament? Li Lingtian glanced at the trio before he quietly asked. Of course we're going to register for it. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose because we get to compete with all these powerhouses this time. We'd never let such a good opportunity slip away. Xuede spoke loudly. Since he had received Li Lingtian's Peerless Vitality Pill, he had managed to cultivate himself and progress from a Tier 5 peak warrior to a Tier 6 peak perfection. Qing Yun had also reached Tier 6 perfection while Shengguanlinger had made the best progress out of all 3 of them. She was previously at Tier 4, but she was now at Tier 5 peak warrior perfection. Since she was already at Tier 5, it was extremely likely that she was in a more advantageous position than Qing Yun and Xuede. After all, everything was due to the difference between their tiers. Aren't you going to register? Why are you here? You're supposed to register over there. Shengguanlinger pointed at the area for the disciples in the second stage to register. Obviously, she was unaware that Li Lingtian had already achieved Tier 9 warrior perfection. As such, Li Lingtian was currently standing at the area for the third stage. I'm entering for the third stage of the tournament, so why would I go there? Li Lingtian smiled before he spoke indifferently. He had always gotten along well with his 3 friends. The third stage is for Tier 9 warriors. You. Unless you're at Tier 9. That's impossible. You were only a Tier 3 warrior when I first met you, and only a few months have passed since then. Oh my god, don't you scare me. All 3 of them were completely stunned because Li Lingtian had managed to advance by 6 tiers in less than a year. Was he defying the natural order, or were the rest of them clearly too weak? But it's only Tier 9. Li Lingtian kept saying these ridiculous things with a straight face. Despite that he had advanced by 6 tiers in half a year, he was still acting so calmly. At this point, he was a terrifying threat to the rest of them. He had achieved Tier 9 peak warrior perfection, but he could continue progressing to other states if he had not reached his limit. Furthermore, he did not spend much time cultivating because most of his time was spent on refining pills. The other people looked dejected as this news had certainly traumatized them. "Brother Lingtian, you're here." While the others were stunned, a sweet voice rang out and Li Lingtian could instantly feel that numerous stern gazes were fixed on him. However, a sense of helplessness stirred in his heart. This voice was extremely familiar because it belonged to his fiancée, Tang Zimeng, who was an exceptionally beautiful young woman. Numerous disciples in the Sky Cloud sect who had nothing better to do had nicknamed her the unique and talented beauty. She was also known as a goddess throughout the Sky Cloud sect. Many disciples secretly desired her as their partner because she was a goddess in their hearts. Wherever she went, Tang Zimeng would always be accompanied by a large group of followers. Now that Tang Zimeng was with Li Lingtian, he naturally became the center of attention as well. It was impossible for him to have any peace and quiet. "Goddess, my name is Qing Yun." "Bang! You're heartless. How could you abandon your friends for a chick? I hope you receive divine punishment." A perverted look appeared on Qing Yun's face when he saw Tang Zimeng. He wanted to approach the beautiful woman, but somebody kicked him and caused him to fall on the ground painfully just as he was done speaking. Qing Yun noisily cursed under his breath before he finally returned to his senses and crawled up. "Junior sister, my name is Shweda." Bang! "Dear God, please send down a lightning bolt and burn this pervert to a crisp." A good-natured look appeared on Shweda's face while he disdainfully looked at Qing Yun who was on the ground in the distance. As he was about to approach Tang Zimeng, he was sent flying up into the sky and crashed on the ground instead. "Hurry up and register yourselves." Li Lingtian glared briefly at both of them before he turned around and looked at Tang Zimeng. Although they had not seen each other for only a few months, she looked much prettier and cuter than before. "Senior brother Li, I'm going to register too." Upon noticing Tang Zimeng's unique and gorgeous appearance, Shangguan Linger could not stop the ache from stirring in her heart. Moments later, the young Tang Zimeng turned to Li Lingtian and piped up. "Brother Li, who is this senior sister?" Tang Zimeng pursed her bright little red lips when she asked that question. She hung on to Li Lingtian's arm as she glanced at Shangguan Linger in the distance. Her actions had instantly attracted numerous people to stare daggers at Li Lingtian. If looks could kill, he would have been murdered at least 10,000 times already. The Sky Cloud sect's disciples had secretly thought of Tang Zimeng as their goddess, but they never had the chance to speak to her on a normal basis. So when they saw her clutching a normal disciple's arm in an intimate manner, they felt an impulse to rush over immediately. "Well, she's my junior sister whom I met some time ago." Li Lingtian spoke indifferently, ignoring all the murderous gazes that were fixed on him. Then, he started to line up at the third stage with the other Tier 9 disciples. There were more than 10,000 disciples in the Sky Cloud sect, and more than 2,000 of them were Tier 9 disciples. "Oh, you're standing at the wrong place, brother Lingtian." Tang Zimeng faintly tugged at Li Lingtian as she spoke gently. Li Lingtian was at Tier 6 the last time she saw him, so she could not help herself from feeling shocked now. Naturally, she could not believe that Li Lingtian was at Tier 9. "No, I'm not standing at the wrong place." Li Lingtian smiled. He could not be happier with his fiancée, Tang Zimeng. All the disciples in the Sky Cloud sect thought of her as their goddess, but she had been pledged to marry Li Lingtian ever since they were children. If Tang Zimeng had been in his previous life, she would have been a peerless beauty such that all of the other gorgeous women would surely pale in comparison. The Tier 9 warriors are the only ones who can register for the tournament here. "Brother Lingtian, are you? Could it be that you're a Tier 9 warrior now?" Tang Zimeng's spirited pupils darted around before she looked at Li Lingtian in disbelief. She would not have dared to believe him even if she was beaten to death. "Yes, you're right. I'm a Tier 9 warrior now." As his cultivation level grew higher, it would be harder for people to tell. Even a warrior spirit powerhouse would fail to determine the true state of his current cultivation level. Tang Zimeng looked dumbfounded, but a delighted look replaced her expression after that. Her heart was filled with excitement as though she was the one who was a Tier 9 warrior. Later, Tang Zimeng constantly remained by Li Lingtian's side, accompanying him as he went to line up and register himself. Nonetheless, she did not want to participate in the tournament. It was impossible for her to compete against the Tier 8 disciples when she had only reached Tier 6 peak. State your cultivation level and your name. Two Tier 5 warrior spirit powerhouses were carrying out the registration for the third stage. They barked those orders indifferently as they saw Li Lingtian walking over. Tier 9 warrior, Li Lingtian. Once he had finished speaking, Li Lingtian extended one hand and stretched it toward the crystal before him. After that, his name, status, cultivation level, and other information appeared there. A 15-year-old Tier 9 warrior. The warrior spirit powerhouse who was responsible for the registration let out a shocked cry. A 15-year-old disciple was a Tier 9 warrior. The powerhouse was also incredibly surprised because the young man was no less a peripheral disciple. All the other genius disciples only managed to become Tier 9 warriors when they were at least 20 years old. Furthermore, they had also relied on countless other resources to climb up. Deep down, the powerhouse was stunned by this young man. Alright, here's your plaque. Good luck. The warrior spirit powerhouse who was carrying out the registration glanced happily at Li Lingtian before he passed a plaque to him soon after that. Suddenly, all the other disciples around them glanced unconsciously at Li Lingtian a few more times. This was the first time that the person at the registration area had wished a disciple good luck. This meant that he had high hopes for Li Lingtian. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. As Li Lingtian took the plaque and noticed that the number 1888 was written there, a faint smile appeared on his face. At that moment, he was feeling rather nostalgic. In his previous life, numbers were a very big deal to humans because they liked auspicious numbers. 8 was considered a lucky number, but he had never imagined that he would get the number 1888. Li Lingtian left reluctantly while numerous gazes of admiration and envy were fixed on him. Everyone would always pay attention to him when he was with Tang Zimeng. However, he knew that their eyes were on him because they were jealous and in awe. The registration ended quickly after that, with a 2-hour break at noon before the tournament began in the afternoon. Since there were more than 10,000 disciples in the sect, the tournament would drag on for a long time if there were any delays. Senior brother, I think I've seen Li Lingtian before. One of the Tier 9 warriors said once Li Lingtian had left. There was a pensive look on his face as well. Li Lingtian, Li Lingtian. I know, he was the one who fought with Yang Xiaotian at the Life or Death Canyon. Another disciple, who was also a Tier 9 warrior, tried very hard to think about it before he finally recalled the Life or Death Canyon. When he thought of that place, he unconsciously looked at Li Lingtian and a shiver stirred in his heart. Li Lingtian and Tang Zimeng walked to the edge of the square while they waited for the other disciples' tournaments to start. The young man was not concerned about his own tournament at all because his goal was to be the first in the inner sect so that he could compete against the warrior spirit powerhouses. Furthermore, since his number was 1888, he would be one of the last ones to compete. Tang Zimeng ignored other people's gazes, but when she noticed the downcast look on Li Lingtian's face, her heart was overjoyed. Brother Lingtian, why the long face? Is something troubling you? Could it be that you're still thinking about the royal princess or that senior sister from just now? Tang Zimeng spoke in a gentle tone. Both of them had grown up together all along, and they continued to meet each other occasionally once they had joined the sect. However, they had started seeing each other less over these last 2 years. Seeing that Li Lingtian's cultivation had greatly improved the last time they met, she was incredibly happy. Although she was worried about Li Lingtian entering the 10,000 Demons Valley, she understood that good men like him were determined to travel far and make their mark. With this, her longing for Li Lingtian grew more intense during this period of time. She was finally able to meet Li Lingtian at the tournament, but she noticed that he was with Shengguan Linger and the others. Nangong Mingyue is merely the imperial family's royal princess, and she's extremely arrogant and haughty. Li Lingtian was stunned as he realized that Tang Zimeng was envious. He could not be any more satisfied to have made his exceptionally beautiful goddess jealous. The young man shook his head when he thought of Nangong Mingyue. Looking back, he was a huge idiot for abandoning his beautiful fiancée in pursuit of Nangong Mingyue. He had really been one-track-minded. As the tournament progressed quickly, he soon heard someone yelling out the number 1888 from the tall platform and a youth walked up to the arena. A faint smile appeared on Li Lingtian's face before he hurriedly rose and walked in the direction of the arena. He knew that his match was about to begin soon. "Brother Lingtian, do you feel confident?" Tang Zimeng asked in a concerned manner as she gazed at her fiancé's silhouette. This isn't my ultimate goal. My final goal is to get first place. In fact, I want to get first place in the entire inner sect," Li Lingtian said before his figure moved faster. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared in the sea of people. When he reappeared, he was already at the bottom of the arena, taking one step at a time towards the top. The first in the inner sect. Tang Zimeng mumbled to herself, and deep down, she was filled with shock. Brother Lingtian had changed a lot. He was so different that she almost could not recognize him anymore. Within a few short months, he had managed to progress from a Tier 6 warrior into a Tier 9 warrior. More so, his current aim was to be the first in the inner sect. It doesn't matter if Brother Lingtian has changed because he'll always be the person whom I love the most. When she said that, Tang Zimeng's beautiful little face blushed slightly. After all, she was Li Lingtian's fiancée. "My name is Xiao Tian." The youth who was standing in the arena gave Li Lingtian a fist salute when he noticed that his opponent had arrived. Xiao Tian wanted to exchange pleasantries at first, but seeing that Li Lingtian was taking his time to walk into the area, he was suddenly filled with disdain. Li Lingtian. Although Li Lingtian noticed that the people below the arena were glaring at him scornfully, he continued to smile before he made an indifferent fist salute toward Xiao Tian. "Junior brother Li, this place isn't suitable for you. You should leave. Otherwise, you'll get hurt later." Xiao Tian spoke arrogantly. It was clear that he was belittling Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian was a Tier 9 warrior, but he was probably just a youth who had relied on pills to improve himself. Numerous disciples below the stage had stunned looks on their faces as well. There was nobody younger than Li Lingtian at the third stage of the tournament, and neither had anyone imagined that a 14 or 15-year-old teenager could actually become a Tier 9 master. "Do you have to keep blabbering to stay alive? Where is all this nonsense coming from? You can choose to leave the arena on your own unless you want me to escort you down." Li Lingtian cursed loudly, provoking his opponent. The other party was clearly looking for a fight. Or else, why was he so arrogant despite only being a Tier 9 warrior? "Wow! Ha ha ha!" The audience below the arena burst out into a commotion as numerous disciples who were watching the battle started to laugh loudly. "Good luck, Brother Lingtian." When Tang Zimeng's sweet voice rang out, all the disciples were suddenly stunned. They then turned and fixed their murderous gazes on Li Lingtian. "Since you're courting death, I should just take this opportunity to teach you a lesson. Overlord Fist. Get lost." Xiao Tian was burning with rage on the inside. He was obviously offended after the teenager insulted him. Moreover, when he noticed that the goddess Tang Zimeng was cheering for Li Lingtian, he wanted to show off in front of his dream girl as well. He was hoping that the beautiful girl would pay attention to him too. His true chi circulated throughout his entire body and his Earth Path warrior's soul before he unleashed his Overlord Fist. The entire arena was instantly filled with his explosive chi and his great strength that traveled beyond the land. That's a fancy but impractical move. It may look impressive, but it's useless. Flaming Divine Fist, come forward for me. Li Lingtian glanced at him disdainfully. Xiao Tian's Earth Path warrior soul and defensive abilities were incredibly powerful, but his attacks were not as strong. Despite only being a Tier 9 defensive type warrior, that man was simply courting death when he attacked Li Lingtian. Without another word, Li Lingtian stepped forward and immediately threw an explosive blow with his fist. He did not circulate his techniques or use any flowery moves, it was just a simple punch, yet this punch was followed by a burning heat that seemed like it would swallow everything up. Boom! The moment an explosive noise echoed, a figure was seen tossed across the sky, drawing a beautiful arc as it went along. Eventually, Xiao Tian collapsed painfully in the arena and he lay there like a dead pig. He's just lying there. Damn, that's a frightening punch. He did it so naturally. It was such a smooth and clean sweep. Has the Amber Tier inferior Flaming Divine Fist always been so scary? Apparently, it's powerful. He has defeated his opponent so simply and immediately. He's frighteningly strong. When the numerous disciples below the stage saw that Xiao Tian had lost, they were utterly shocked. A teenager had defeated Xiao Tian with such ease, and this was not normal at all. That was such a clean sweep. I never knew that one could almost achieve conception if you cultivated the Flaming Divine Fist to its limit. Warrior King Zhongling's eyes that were semi-shut earlier were now stern. He was originally unconcerned about this ordinary match between two Tier 9 disciples, but he had never imagined that a teenager could use the most inferior Flaming Divine Fist to win against the superior Overlord Fist. Indeed, that was quite impressive. He's only 15 years old, but he has managed to advance his cultivation level and become a Tier 9 warrior while cultivating his skills to the limit as well. You won't find anyone else like him in Sky Cloud's sect. Several Tier 9 warrior Spirit Peak judges were extremely stunned too. It was not a big deal to be a Tier 9 warrior. In fact, it was a perfectly normal matter. However, this particular situation was abnormal because of Li Lingtian's age and his innate talent for cultivating his skills. Not only was it abnormal, but it was terrifying as well. Li Lingtian wins. Long Tian announced this out loud while he unconsciously did a double take at Li Lingtian. To have had praises from several elders, that young man must be an extraordinary person. Good job, brother Lingtian. Tang Zimeng excitedly complimented him while the joyful feeling in her heart grew more intense. That young man was her very own brother Lingtian, her fiancé. Li Lingtian walked out of the arena and stopped beside Tang Zimeng. His face wore a faint smile as he reached his hand out and stroked her beautiful hair. He was glad to be able to share his strength with her. Senior brother Li, your attack was so flawless. Qing Yun and the others walked over and praised him as well. The Flaming Divine Fist was an inferior skill that all the disciples had looked down upon before this, but Li Lingtian had turned this lackluster skill into a mysteriously powerful one. The group then left the previous arena and walked toward the fourth stage arena. As they observed the matches between the warrior spirit powerhouses there, they noticed that the difference between the fourth stage matches and the competitions between the other disciples were worlds apart. On the first day, Li Lingtian entered 3 matches and had successfully joined the top 300, ranking as one of the top 300 disciples among the Tier 9 warriors. When the matches for that day ended, he had to wait until the next day to continue. He had managed to smoothly defeat his opponents with one punch during every match, but unfortunately, this also left many of his opponents feeling defeated. Although there were more than 10,000 disciples in the first and second stages, the matches finished at an incredibly quick pace. It seemed like every match was decided after one blow. Within one day, the matches at all 4 stages were progressing at a similar speed. Shweta had successfully advanced to the next round, and so did Qing Yun. However, he looked slightly disheveled. As a Tier 5 Peak Perfection warrior, Shangguan Linger had successfully advanced to the next round as well. Let's go and celebrate because all of us have managed to advance to the next round. Shweta spoke loudly before he glanced at Li Lingtian as an effort to plead with him. Although Li Lingtian was the youngest, everyone gradually revolved around him because of his terrifying power. All right. Tang Zimeng was instantly overjoyed when Li Lingtian nodded. Back then, she used to follow Li Lingtian out frequently to have fun when she had just arrived in the Sky Cloud sect, and she had missed that feeling terribly. Chapter 24. Chapter 24. There were many inns and shops outside of Sky Cloud's sect, but these establishments were operated by the sect's disciples. Outsiders had no means to get into business there. With tens of thousands Sky Cloud sect disciples living in Sky Mountains, needs would certainly have to be to fulfill. Hence, these inns and restaurants became the haven of Sky Cloud sect disciples. Abundance Restaurant was the go-to place in Sky Cloud sect. Even though the dishes there were the best, the price was beyond affordable, hence regular disciples could not afford to dine at such a place. However, the only ones who could afford a place like this were either genius disciples or highly skilled masters, as they were the only ones who had spiritual stones at their disposal. "Senior sister, please come in. Would it be the private room or main hall?" The lowest expenditure for the private room is 500 spiritual stones, while the main hall is 200 spiritual stones. A Tier 3 warrior disciple greeted the group of people that had arrived at the entrance of Abundance Restaurant. Judging by the way they dressed, the rest did not look like they were rich apart from Tang Zimeng, who carried herself with a goddess-like bearing. So, the disciple only greeted Tang Zimeng and ignored the rest, including Li Lingtian. With eyes that spoke of disdain towards Li Lingtian's group, he announced the price tag on the private room and main hall. 500 spiritual stones. Li Lingtian gasped in surprise. His comical gesture left Shweta and the rest stunned. After all, there was no need for an exaggerated show of emotion. Hee. The hosting disciple who had welcomed the group showed his contempt upon noticing Li Lingtian's reaction and labeled him as another country bumpkin. However, Li Lingtian's following statement threw a curveball at the disciple. 500 spiritual stones. So little. Well, there's no class to that. Fine, we'll make do. Li Lingtian smacked the hosting disciple at the back of his head before darting him a steely gaze. This disciple deserved a spanking for acting like a snob. "Senior brother, senior sister, please allow me to guide you to the private room on the second floor." Although the hosting disciple was dumbstruck, he dared not retaliate the slap in the head and he grew fearful instead. Nevertheless, the customers were king, so he immediately led all of them up the stairs. The group walked towards the second floor. The second floor also comprised the main hall, but it was surrounded by many private rooms as well. As they had climbed up the stairs and were about to enter a private room, they heard a faint voice. "If it isn't junior sister Zimeng, what a pleasant surprise." Following the faint voice, a young man, who was carrying a supposed carefree smile, walked over towards the group. With his eyes only on Tang Zimeng, the young man ignored the others. "Xiao Dongqing, it's you." At the appearance of this young man, Tang Zimeng frowned and her smile hardened. It was obvious that she was familiar with this young man. "Of course, junior sister Zimeng, you're here and we came at the right time. Come, it's my treat. I won 3 consecutive rounds today, hee. As Xiao Dongqing only had eyes for Tang Zimeng, he disregarded the rest of the crew. He had come here to celebrate him winning 3 consecutive rounds in the tournament, so he was naturally ecstatic over meeting the goddess of his dreams. "Are you Motherf * King blind?" Li Lingtian struck a palm at him. As a loud blow echoed throughout the second floor, everyone turned their gaze over, dumbstruck by what they saw. A young man had given Xiao Dongqing, a Tier 9 peak warrior genius, a slap in the face. The image had surpassed their imaginations. "You hit me." Without a chance to dodge, Xiao Dongqing felt a breeze against his face followed by a searing sting. That moment had left him in a complete daze. Picking up an arm to caress his flushed cheek, the young man stared blankly at Li Lingtian. He was still unable to come to grips on what had happened. PFT Shu. No one knew who cracked up first, but suddenly, the other dining warriors burst into laughter too. Since they were here, they must either be highly gifted or skilled, so they were unafraid of stirring a scene. Yeah, I struck you. Come bite me. Li Lingtian was rendered speechless. This dumb pig must be knocked out of his wits. This young man was playing with fire by wooing his woman in front of him. Die. Meanwhile, Xiao Dongqing had returned to his senses. As his face reddened with rage, his body of true qi intensified as a display of his Tier 9 peak warrior abilities. The second floor was instantly filled with violent qi. He was pleased with himself after winning 3 rounds in the third stage today. However, he never thought that he would be slapped in the face by this young man, and in front of a large crowd too. He would never hear the end of it in Sky Cloud's sect if he did not cripple this young man. You dirty dog, how daring of you to make advances on my woman in front of me. Doesn't this call for a beating? Li Lingtian ignored Xiao Dongqing's vigor and kept a smile on his face. A Tier 9 warrior sure had the guts to lay a hand on him. What? Tang Zimeng is his woman. It must be a mistake. She's the goddess of our Sky Cloud sect. He's way out of her league. The growing clamor was proof that it was much more shocking than Xiao Dongqing getting slapped. The fact that the goddess of every Sky Cloud sect disciple's dream was his woman was a harder pill to swallow. Although Tang Zimeng was taken aback, she was quickly filled with happiness and her glossy eyes fixated on Li Lingtian. This was the first time Li Lingtian admitted that she was his woman. Even if it were before, Li Lingtian had never proclaimed such a thing even though they were both well aware of their relationship. Moreover, he was in pursuit of Nangong Mingyue for a period of time. Impossible. I challenge you to a duel. Junior sister Zimeng belongs to the strongest. Dismissing the earlier slapping incident from his mind, Xiao Dongqing cried out loud. Since the other warriors on the second floor were upset that their goddess was taken away from them as well, they all banded together. Are you out of your mind? I don't belong to anyone because my heart belongs to brother Lingtian. As though she had to validate Li Lingtian's words, Tang Zimeng leaned towards Li Lingtian and answered in a soft voice. Although it was a whisper, everyone heard it clearly. I don't belong to anyone because my heart belongs to brother Lingtian. This sentence caused many warriors to break down. With pale faces, they could not hide their envy and jealousy. Don't think highly of yourself because you don't have an advantage. You're nothing in the eyes of others. Li Lingtian brought Tang Zimeng into the private room after he said those words. Shweda, Shangguan Linger, and the rest followed suit, leaving behind Xiao Dongqing with an empty look in his face as he lifelessly navigated out of the restaurant. The other warriors clammed up. This time, they had completely lost, or perhaps they never lost since they had never participated. After all, it was all one-sided wishful thinking. However, Li Lingtian's words struck a chord in all the warriors. They were so dumbstruck that they were inattentive to where Li Lingtian's group went. In the private room, the group had forgotten about the earlier episode as they dug in their meals to their heart's content. Tang Zimeng was the happiest of all, she had never experienced happiness like today. With brother Li Lingtian's cultivation on the rise, she, as the fiancée, could not be happier for Li Lingtian. Moreover, she reveled in Li Lingtian's statement that she was his woman. By the time the group left the restaurant, it was late into the night. Shweda and the other two went about their ways while Li Lingtian escorted Tang Zimeng back to her residence before he returned to his room. It was morning the next day when Sky Cloud Square was filled with a multitude of people because today's tournament would be a fierce one. There were several hundred participants remaining in the 4 stages of today's grand tournament. However, the tournament would not conclude on this day as the further the tournament advanced, the longer time the battles would consume. Let me announce yesterday's tournament results. There are 400 disciples remaining in the first stage, 400 disciples in the second stage and third stage, and 200 disciples in the fourth stage. The grand tournament begins now, Long Tian announced. All warrior spirits and 4 warrior kings went to their seats before they began to preside over their respective arenas. Out of Li Lingtian's group, Shangguan Linger went through her rounds the quickest and made it to the top 100. In other words, she could receive a prize if she won one more round. Chen Yun and Shueda were both eliminated, so they gathered around the third stage's arena to root for Li Lingtian. Number 1888, Li Lingtian against number 367, Zhong Yun, Long Tian shouted. Zhong Yun flew up to the arena and stared down at the warriors below. He would enter the top 200 if he bagged one more win, making him a step closer to the top 100. Zhong Yun, please enlighten me. With a bitter smile, Zhong Yun turned his gaze to Li Lingtian, who was in the arena. He was well versed in every opponent, but he did not have an inkling on this Li Lingtian. It was as though Li Lingtian had appeared out of thin air. In all 3 rounds yesterday, it was all a clean-cut easy win as Li Lingtian defeated his opponents with a single flaming divine fist. I'm Li Lingtian. Do you still want to go on with this match? Similar to yesterday, Li Lingtian threw the young man a question. He was not the least bit interested in a Tier 9 warrior since his eyes were fixed in the 4th stage's arena. Only a warrior spirit was a worthy opponent. Take a guess, between Senior Brother Li and Senior Brother Zhong, who would win? It's hard to say. Senior Brother Li has won 3 consecutive rounds with an Amber Tier Flaming Divine Fist, while Senior Brother Zhong has mastered a mediocre spiritual equipment and Amber Tier Superior Great Compassion Palm. I think Senior Brother Zhong has a greater chance. After weighing in Li Lingtian and Zhong Yun's capabilities, the disciples underneath the arena leaned towards Zhong Yun for the win. The victory scale was tipping towards Zhong Yun with his Amber Tier superior skill as well as his mediocre spiritual equipment. What an arrogant PR**CK. I'll have you know today that there'll always be someone better than you. Zhong Yun pressed forth an arm, invoking a quiver in the air. A powerful force emitted as he spun his arms. Following the movements of his palms, the air trembled violently. That's right. To be able to cultivate Great Compassion Palm to its summit, he is one of his kind in the younger generation of disciples in Sky Cloud sect. A few warrior spirit powerhouses were gratified and satisfied to see the change in the atmosphere. Such a gifted disciple added value in strength to Sky Cloud sect. Great Compassion Palm. At a loud roar, Zhong Yun's violent vigor mounted over Li Lingtian after reaching a peak. The disciples who were gathered around the arena immediately moved back. Flaming Divine Fist. Li Lingtian smiled faintly without a care. He knew that an Amber Tier superior skill cultivated to its summit surpassed the force of an Onyx Tier skill. However, it was still not on par with his Flaming Divine Fist. Circulating the fire dragon's heart within him, Li Lingtian pushed a destructive flaming chi to his knuckles. As one in possession of a flaming sacred body, controlling flames came naturally to him. Rumble. A tyrannical sharp force with endless flames ripped through the air. In the blink of an eye, 2 furious attacks came into blows. Chapter 25. Chapter 25. Following a loud bang, Li Lingtian swayed his body and activated his breeze technique. At the swing of his arm, a silver glow flickered before his body descended on the ground and he stood firmly at the edge of the arena with his back towards Zhong Yun. PFT swoosh. Zhong Yun leaped to withdraw himself, but before he could secure a footing, a peculiar glow was shot towards him, catching him by surprise. The velocity was so quick, it almost surpassed the naked eye. The moment the destructive attack struck him in the chest, it also crushed his powerful defense. Like a kite with a cut in the string, he was blown away, and he eventually fell off the arena. D***MN. After falling off the arena, Zhong Yun inspected his torn garment and bloodstained chest. Although he did sustain some injuries, he knew that Li Lingtian had shown mercy, else he would be long gone. What a peculiar blade glow. The speed went beyond a warrior. Even a warrior spirit would not be able to demonstrate such velocity. This is the astounding sword technique's first form, Bright Moon in Soft Breeze. Who would have thought he'd be able to cultivate this Bright Moon in Soft Breeze to fruition? Meticulous calculation, exquisite speed, and flawless. No warrior disciples would be able to ward off this move. It's a pity. Zhong Yun lost before he had a chance to use his spiritual equipment. The warrior spirits and warrior kings above the arenas nodded their heads in satisfaction as they engaged in a discussion on Li Lingtian's earlier move. This also came as a surprise to the countless disciples beneath the arena. Zhong Yun, who they had expected to win, did not even have a chance to demonstrate his spiritual equipment. Li Lingtian wins. Long Tian announced Li Lingtian's victory. He then began to call other disciples up to the arena while spectating other ongoing matches. The tournament wore Long Tian out the most as he had to host matches in 4 arenas without any break. Senior Brother Li, that strike was awesome and powerful. Hello, Senior Brother Li. Senior Brother Li. Li Lingtian moved towards Tang Zimeng after he got down from the arena. While he was on his way down, many warriors greeted Li Lingtian with respect. After all, it was a dog-eat-dog world. Li Lingtian may be young, but his terrifying abilities left everyone tiptoeing around him. At that moment, 2 Tier 3 warrior spirits were engaged in a fierce battle on the 4th stage's platform. Due to that, disciples beneath the arena had scattered afar as powerful forces ravaged the air. Tier 3 warrior spirit. I won't be able to win if I went for Bright Moon in Soft Breeze, unless I resort to using the Kailan Sword or Sky Perishing Spear. Li Lingtian played out the scenario in his mind, taking the angle of the Tier 3 warrior spirit's opponent as he watched the match happen on the platform. This was because he would sooner or later encounter a Tier 3 warrior spirit, perhaps even a Tier 6 or 7 warrior spirit. As time passed, Li Lingtian was back on the arena for another match, but he and other warriors were dumbstruck by this round. His opponent threw in the towel and admitted defeat. With that, he was now one of the top 100 disciples, and that gained him attention among countless disciples in Sky Cloud sect. In a short span of 2 days, Li Lingtian rose to fame faster than some of the top geniuses. He had triumphed the arena several times with only an Amber Tier inferior Flaming Divine Fist and struck Zhong Yun out with a single blade in a battle. The morning tournament is over and will continue in the afternoon, Long Tian declared after 2 rounds of matches ended. Following that, the disciples dispersed because there was no point in waiting when it was 2 hours away from the afternoon's matches. Li Lingtian and Tang Zimeng left the square and headed deep into the mountains. They used to have fun in these places but had grown apart during the 2 years. Li Lingtian was going to return for rest because he had more rounds happening in the afternoon. There were 3 matches in the afternoon, and if luck was on his side, he would advance to the top 10. The top 10 disciples in the 3rd stage would have the opportunity to venture into higher-level matches. However, he was in a great mood to have the company of a beauty. The duo spent the entire noon strolling in the mountains before they went back to the square. By the time they made it to the square, many disciples had arrived. In the ensuing afternoon, Li Lingtian had entered the top 10 without a hitch. Nevertheless, Li Lingtian did not fight with the other disciples for the ranking in the 10 top spots, and so, he ranked 10th. This was because he wanted to save his strength to compete for Sky Cloud's sect spot in the top 100 in tomorrow's competition. The top 10 rankings in the 3rd stage were nothing in comparison, as the inner sect geniuses were the true masters. All elimination rounds are over. Tomorrow marks the beginning of challenge rounds to decide Sky Cloud sect's top 100. After Long Tian announced the instructions given by the 4 warrior kings, the warrior spirit and warrior king powerhouses departed the stage while other disciples went on their way. Brother Lingtian, Meng will support you no matter what you do. I'll be heading off now. Rest well. Tang Zimeng did not want to leave Li Lingtian, but she recalled Li Lingtian's aim to be top of the inner sect. She was aware that tomorrow was a huge day for Li Lingtian. As she did not want Li Lingtian to have any regrets, she had to stay away from disrupting Li Lingtian's rest. Hence, she trod towards her residence with heavy footsteps. Upon returning to his room, Li Lingtian cultivated in peace. He circulated bright moon in soft breeze, vast obscure extermination, flaming divine fist, and ice vitality divine fist to bring his skills to full play for the next day. In Sky Cloud sect, there was a restricted area where only warrior king class elders were allowed in. This was the Divine Cloud Hall. Divine Cloud Hall was established by Sky Cloud sect's founder, warrior ruler Tian Yun. 1. Any important matters involving the sect were discussed by elders who were warrior kings and above in Divine Cloud Hall. On this day, Divine Cloud Hall was brightly lit in the dark of the night. 20 over warrior kings were seated in 2 rows in the hall while an elder in black took a seat in the center. There was an absence of chi from this person, but he emitted an immovable vigor as if a weight was over everyone's head. There were many tier 6, 7, and even tier 9 warrior kings present, yet they dared not let out a breath in front of this elder. Ling Tianfeng, Sky Cloud sect's leader, was a tier 5 warrior ascendant powerhouse. He was a powerhouse of over a century years old, and he wielded the highest authority in Sky Cloud sect. These warrior kings beneath him were core members of Sky Cloud sect. Each one of them was dominant in their own right, yet here they were, gathered together. What do you think of the tournament this time? Ling Tianfeng dully asked. His voice may not be loud, but the vigor of a superior being filled the room. It was as if he reigned over the entire hall. The strength of a sect did not depend on the number of warrior kings or ascendants but the varying gifted disciples. The disciples held the key to the future to carry forward the sect. Without any successors, the sect would meet its fated end. Sect leader, there are indeed many great disciples in this grand tournament. One of the disciples was still a warrior apprentice a year ago but seemed to have reached the tier 9 peak warrior in perfection in this tournament. He only demonstrated an amber tier inferior flaming divine fist in the few rounds, so I can't tell much about his ability. It's my first inability to read a warrior disciple. Qin Tian stood up and gave Ling Tianfeng a bow. Then, he explained the circumstance surrounding Ling Tian with a baffled look. History, identity, background. Ling Tianfeng paused before he showed some interest. He then looked at Qin Tian and asked indifferently. It was great for a sect to have a gifted disciple, but loyalty was a must. It would only spell trouble if he were a spy sent by other forces. The son of Sky Dragon Empire's nobleman Ping Bei, the fiancé of the Tang family's granddaughter and an aristocrat to the empire. I suspect that he has something to do with the Fire Dragon Cave incident, or he wouldn't be in possession of such a pure flaming chi. Could it be? Could it be that he has entered the Fire Dragon Cave? Qin Tian disclosed Li Lingtian's identity and background. None of the details escaped their eyes. However, as Li Lingtian's display of his ordinary flaming divine fist's massive force from in the past 2 days came to mind, he immediately formed an association with the Fire Dragon Cave incident. Li Lingtian may think that others were unaware of the Fire Dragon Cave incident, but the cave was an important place in Sky Cloud sect. Sky Cloud sect had eyes on every movement and had long discovered the problem in Fire Dragon Cave. Save that for another day. It's his destiny if it really is him. Check on his warrior soul and attributes then. What about the other disciples? Ling Tianfeng nodded. As the sect leader of a super force, he was not bothered by this. It was alright for the sect to sustain a bit of loss as long as the Sky Cloud sect disciple checked out. The other disciples fared better than in former tournaments. Sky Cloud sect should gain a few warrior kings in less than 10 years. By the looks of it, the few talented disciples may eventually become the backbone of the sect. Qin Tian went through a list of gifted disciples who participated in the last 2 days of the tournament. Those whom he approved of were great talents that had a shot in becoming warrior kings or warrior ascendants. This tournament will decide the direction of our Sky Cloud sect for the next century. You are all aware that the opening of Hidden Dragon Isle is around the corner. The 4 great empires of East Spirit Greenland, the 4 mysterious clans, and countless liberal cultivators will be entering the isle. We, as part of the Big 4 sects in Sky Dragon Empire, only hold 200 quotas for our sect. The chances are really slim, so each disciple that has access should be guaranteed an abundance of medicinal ingredients. If we're left with no other choices, anything that is unattainable to our Sky Clouds sect should be unattainable for the other sections. Ling Tianfeng spoke solemnly with expectant eyes. The East Spirit Greenland, for great empires, for mysterious clans, and countless liberal cultivators were looking forward to the opening of Hidden Dragon Isle. Hence, Sky Clouds sect could not afford to be careless. We understand. We will do our utmost on this matter. The warrior kings replied and saluted with respect. Not only would a powerful sect require great power, but it would also require the strength of cohesiveness. This time, Qin Tian, Zhang Ling, you four will be advancing to Hidden Dragon Isle to make sure no threats come to any Sky Cloud sect disciples. You're entrusted with full responsibility for the whole year on Hidden Dragon Isle. Double the prize for the top 3 disciples in the tournament. Ensure that they leave Hidden Dragon Isle safely to the best of your ability. These are the rewards for the top 3, but wait until the tournament is over before opening them. Also, double the benefits for all disciples and nurture the peripheral disciples after the tournament. Sky Cloud sect cannot wait any longer. Go now. At the swing of Ling Tianfeng's arm, 3 storage sacks appeared. Following his gaze, these storage sacks flew towards Qin Tian as if they were under his control. Ling Tianfeng then disappeared out of the blue. With that, the rest of the warrior kings swiftly left the Divine Cloud Hall and returned to their post. Chapter 26. Chapter 26. On the 3rd day of Sky Cloud Sect Grand Tournament, the square was equally crowded, but it was also a livelier scene compared to the previous 2 days. It may seem like it was only a fight for the top 100 spots, but these 100 disciples would be able to reign supreme across Sky Cloud Sect. With this, many disciples had started to place their bets, waging on the person who could come out on top. The person they picked was a genius of great repute in Sky Cloud Sect. This person was also an extremely gifted warrior spirit at the height of tier 5 or 6. The ranking of the top 100 was a battle between disciples of all 4 stages, but only the top 10 disciples in the 1st, 2nd and 3rd stages were eligible to take part, while the majority competing were disciples in the 4th stage. Those who would rank in the top 100 would be the warrior spirit powerhouses because no warriors were capable of entering the ranking. Besides, warrior spirits numbered in hundreds and thousands, so those who could place in the top 100 were top-notch geniuses. The sect had made a rule that only the top 10 disciples in the 3 primary stages were eligible to participate, so that these low-level disciples were not denied of their abilities. There was a lot of law in this world, but there were also unexpected occurrences that rose above such laws. Rumble. Rumble. Thundering drum rolls filled the air, marking the last day of the grand tournament. This was the day to decide the ranking of the top 100, as well as the ranking of the top 10 among Sky Cloud sect disciples. Today will be Sky Cloud sect's last match. The battle for the ranking of the top 100 hereby begins. Let me announce the rules. The judges will arrange the battles for disciples in the 4th stage and decide on the ranking based on these battles. Those who refuse to accept the decision are allowed to challenge. Disciples of the remaining stages may challenge desired opponents after the ranking is decided. Long Tian simply explained the rules, and it was rather straightforward. The dozens of judges in the sect were either warrior spirit and warrior king powerhouses. They would decide the rank and respective opponents based on the disciples' combined strength in cultivation level, skills, abilities, as well as armed weapons. Through this method, the judges would be able to gauge the disciples' abilities. However, if one thought that their ability did not tally with their placing after the ranking was decided, they could throw down the gauntlet to a disciple of higher ranking. The challenger who won would then claim the ranking of the loser. Swoosh swoosh. Swoosh swoosh. The square suddenly turned silent after the announcement. Soon, a piercing sound broke through the air as a dozen or so figures flickered over. In the blink of an eye, the dozen odd figures descended below the platform. Elders. 13 exceptional figures bowed before the warrior kings above the platform with respect. It's senior brother Duanmu. That's senior brother Dongfang Qingyu. Senior sister Lan Yuyan's there too. Murong Tianjiao is even more powerful now. Senior brother Shao Tianba's blazing metal qi is compelling. For a moment, the square rose to a clamor. These 13 first-class gifted disciples had achieved tier 5 or 6 warrior spirits before the age of 30. Due to that, these super geniuses were the idols of all disciples. Duanmu Qing, he. Li Lingtian looked towards Duanmu Qing with a faint smile on his face before his gaze turned to Tang Zimeng. Her sixth grandfather had his reason for wanting to betroth her to Duanmu Qing. Brother Lingtian, what are you looking at me for? It's all sixth grandfather's doing. Meng Meng is your fiancé and I belong to brother Lingtian for life, Tang Zimeng responded in a sweet voice. She instantly knew what was in his mind the second Li Lingtian turned to look at her. Take a look, who do you think will finish first among them? With a gentle smile, Li Lingtian asked Tang Zimeng in a soft voice. He then turned to Xuede and the rest. Li Lingtian had exceeded their expectations for the past few days. A genius who was capable of refining peerless pills, a madman who became a tier 9 warrior in mere months, a super gifted disciple who skyrocketed to the top 10, Li Lingtian's omnipotence had left quite an impression on them. I think that the odds are higher with Duanmu Qing and Murong Tianjiao. Lan Yuyan and Shao Tianba are quite the competitors. They should place in the top 3. Dongfang Qingyu seems powerful and mysterious. I would guess that he's one to look out for. The trio, including Xuede, had pondered for a while but still had a hard time deciding. These 13 elders were greatly nurtured by the sect and they had been provided with the best resources, pills, spiritual stones, weapons, techniques, as well as skills. As their cultivation levels were roughly the same, trying to single out the victor was no easy feat. I think that none of the 13 has a chance to claim first, Tang Zimeng whispered. She kept her voice low within the group. Xuede and the 2 others were stunned and baffled. Who would reign supreme if not the one of the 13? Let the match begin. When the 100 disciples were done preparing, they began to compete. In the end, 13 disciples would be eliminated. If they could not accept defeat, these 13 could ask for a challenge. After all, these 13 spots were reserved for the 13 newly arrived super geniuses. I am Ling Xiao, please enlighten me. With a tier 2 warrior spirit and a fire path warrior soul, Ling Xiao had advanced into the top 100 with a mediocre spiritual equipment. All he had to do now was win this round and he would be able to gain a firm footing in the top 100. I'm Mu Ming, please enlighten me too. As Mu Ming was a tier 2 warrior spirit with a metal path warrior soul, it placed both of their abilities on par with one another. Hence, it was now up to their experience, mentality, and luck. Such an arrangement went to show the judges' good eye for detail. Flaming Slice. A mediocre spiritual equipment, blazing metal slice was suddenly struck and it overwhelmed the atmosphere with an explosive flaming qi. Aghast, the spectating disciples. One immediately jumped out of the way. Purple gold shuttle, penetrate. Not one to take it lying down, Mu Ming blasted a purple gold shuttle with just a wave of his hand. Then, a golden radiance flickered as it sped towards the flames. The destructive force of the golden attack was fearsome and it was much more overpowering than the drive of the fire path. In an instant, these 2 attacks collided against one another. Wham! In this battle between the strong, the duo could sense their own opponent's force through a single attack and they both knew that there was only a 50-50 chance to claim victory. In that split second, the duo decided to unleash their fullest potential. Wham! Following a dull crash, Ling Xiao's body shook violently like a quivering leaf as he fell off the arena. Helplessness and regret were written all over his face. Mu Ming wins. Long Tian declared loudly before calling another 2 warrior spirit disciples to enter the arena. The rest of the judges then began their deliberations in analyzing the rankings of Ling Xiao and Mu Ming. Li Lingtian no longer had his eyes peeled on the matches between these warrior spirit disciples. Instead, he turned his gaze to the 13 super geniuses because they were his opponents. He had no clue about the grand tournament's rules at the start, so he saw these disciples as his opponents. Yet now that he was in the know, he realized that these disciples were not worth his time, as he could just challenge 10 frontrunners right there and then. Although this loophole existed, no one could take advantage of it. In other words, it was impossible for disciples of other stages to defeat the top 10 masters. Similarly, the 13 super geniuses had never bothered to observe the ongoing fights. Their huge prides naturally did not render these disciples as a threat. By the time morning had passed, the top 100 was determined. 13 warrior spirit disciples were knocked out, and even after challenging the ranks, no one was able to change their fate. This was the foresight of warrior spirit and warrior king powerhouses, the ability to analyze abilities in every aspect. With 87 positions in place, we will start from the 1st to 13th place. The 13 places have been arranged, and those who are unwilling to accept this decision can opt to challenge the system. Dongfang Qingyu, 1st place. Duanmu Qing, 2nd place. Lan Yuyan, 3rd place. Shao Tianba, 4th place. Murong Tianjiao, 5th place. Long Tian read out the ranking that was decided by the judges. This ranking was based on all the judges' analysis of the disciples' overall strength, but the actual ranking would still be determined by the matches between the disciples. As Long Tian rambled on about the placing, the disciples remained emotionless because they knew the real battle was just about to begin. I, Huangfu Xian, cannot accept the 13th place and wish to challenge senior brother Cheng Hao, who is placed 6th. I, Lu Tian, cannot accept the 12th place and wish to challenge senior brother Bai Xiaozi, who is placed 7th. For a moment, those who placed 6th and below were either challenged or challenging others. No one dared to touch the top 5 disciples, as they knew that the battle between the 5 was about to set off. Meng Meng, do you think I can compete with them? Li Lingtian whispered in Tang Zimeng's ear. He felt great pressure mounting over him. Out of the 5 super disciples, only Shao Tianba was a Tier 5 warrior spirit. The remaining 4 were Tier 6 warrior spirits. I believe in Brother Lingtian. In fact, I will support Brother Lingtian no matter what you do. Tang Zimeng answered under her breath. Although Li Lingtian had proved to be a force to be reckoned with, he was still a warrior disciple. Competing with warrior spirit powerhouses was simply out of the question. Nevertheless, she did not want to put pressure on Li Lingtian. After all, it was dangerous to compete with a warrior spirit, and Tang Zimeng was concerned that Li Lingtian would be crippled by these warrior spirit powerhouses. Cheng Hao wins. Bai Xiaozi wins. Zhou Feng wins. Bai Mingyu wins. Of all 5 challengers, each of them suffered defeat in their battle. The disciples who failed in their attempt could only smile on bitterly. As such, no room was left to question the elders and judges' foresight. Currently, the 5 super geniuses in the top 5 remained unchallenged, as they were all Tier 6 warrior spirits apart from Shao Tianba. Senior brother Dongfang, I haven't seen you for 5 years. We should settle the score this time. Murong Tianjiao stood up and walked towards the arena with his eyes fixed on Dongfang Qingyu. Dongfang Qingyu was placed first for the time being, while Murong Tianjiao was placed last. Their abilities were neck to neck, without much of a difference between them. He did not take the ranking to heart because he would still initiate a challenge either way. Everyone in the top 5 was pinning for the number 1 spot. If someone else were to take the lead in challenging before he could throw down the gauntlet, he would be at a disadvantage. Chapter 27. Chapter 27. Junior brother Murong, since we couldn't settle the score 5 years ago, let's settle it today. With a carefree smile, Murong Tianjiao reappeared in the arena in a flash. 5 years ago, the duo was in the 3rd stage of the tournament. They were battling it out for the first spot when both of them simultaneously sustained injuries, and it subsequently tied them in first place. Using that as their motivation, they cultivated hard to triumph over each other for the past 5 years. Meteor Green Moon Slice. Dongfang Qingyu struck without holding back. After years of battle, they could no longer make out who was superior, but it was finally time to settle it once and for all. As the duo was familiar with each other's abilities, they immediately launched their most powerful attack without giving each other a breather. This wind path genius moved with such swiftness while the Meteor Green Moon Slice, an ordinary spiritual equipment in his hand, channeled a domineering force. The combination of speed and attack raised the stakes on his overall strength. Then, an illuminated figure arched over the sky like a meteor before slicing down on Murong Tianjiao. As a slight quiver was felt in the atmosphere, every disciple within 100 yards of the arena watched in a distance with their jaws dropped. A wind path warrior's soul is indeed powerful. Even my breeze technique wouldn't be able to catch up to him, hee. As Dongfang Qingyu's attack and speed unfolded, Li Lingtian weighed in his options to counteract as an opponent in his mind. Senior brother Dongfang's Meteor Green Moon Slice is imperious. He should be ranked first in Sky Cloud's sect with that speed. That move alone is at least a tier 5 warrior spirit state. He's undefeatable. Underneath the arena, all disciples, including the other 3 super geniuses, gasped in horror at the attack. The duo's abilities were beyond them. With great luck, Dongfang Qingyu would definitely become a warrior king within 10 years. Sky Cloud's sect will prosper with such a disciple. The elders and judges above the platform were engaged in a heated discussion but with a gratified look on their faces. Senior brother Dongfang has cultivated Meteor Green Moon Slice to its summit. It's no wonder. God's wrath, 1,000 waves stir. Murong Tianjiao was taken aback by Dongfang Qingyu's Meteor Green Moon Slice. It had never crossed his mind that his opponent could cultivate this move to its summit. Their experience of battling it out throughout the years had served as a reminder that there was no need to bother with some low-leveled skills and techniques because those attacks were useless. They were also concerned that other disciples would want to challenge them after true qi had been exhausted. Hence, they opted to go forth using their most powerful attack to suppress their opponents, with the purpose of claiming victory in a single move. Good, these two are good. One dominates in speed and attack while the other reigns supreme in defense and mounting pressure. Meteor Green Moon Slice is the combination of speed and attack. 1,000 waves stir is the overlay of several thousand attacks before it would erupt altogether. Many top warriors, as well as judges, exchanged views on their attacks. For a moment, it was hard to determine the victor. Murong Tianjiao is going to lose. Li Lingtian foresaw the outcome after witnessing both Dongfang Qingyu's attack and 1,000 waves stir. His experience and wisdom easily enabled him to predict the result. Unaware of Li Lingtian's comments, the disciples watched with aghast as the two attacks collided. Following a thundering blow, violent forces burst out of the arena. Amid the strong blowout, the duo in the arena exchanged glances in a calm demeanor, prompting thousands of disciples in the square to hold their tongues. Tui! The sound of blood spewing suddenly broke the silence. Meanwhile, as violent forces towered the sky, Dongfang Qingyu moved in a flash while Murong Tianjiao fell motionlessly off the arena. Senior brother Murong lost. Senior brother Dongfang won. What a terrifying blow. No one would be able to withstand that move. The entire square was now engaged in various discussions over Dongfang Qingyu's victory. Li Lingtian was upset because an opponent he was worried about had made an appearance, a Windpath warrior soul super genius who moved at high velocity and struck a defiantly strong attack. Dongfang Qingyu wins, Murong Tianjiao has failed in his challenge. After obtaining the approval of various warrior king elders, Long Tian loudly declared Dongfang Qingyu victorious. Dongfang Qingyu stood in the arena with a carefree smile on his face. It made countless female disciples head over heels with him. Is there anyone else who wishes to challenge the first place? The challenge for second place will begin in the other arena. Those who are interested in challenging the number 1 spot can wait 10 minutes, Long Tian announced in a loud voice. This was because the one who won first place must accept challenges from other disciples at a maximum of 3 times. This way, it would prove that he deserved the position. Xiao Tianba, to challenge senior brother Duanmu, Xiao Tianba said loudly. He was all too familiar with Dongfang Qingyu's cultivation level and ability. Equipped with the speed of a wind path and powerful attack, no one would be able to defeat Dongfang Qingyu unless one's cultivation level surpassed his. Okay, junior brother Xiao, are you sure you want to challenge me? Duanmu Qing walked up to the arena and took a glance at Xiao Tianba. Xiao Tianba was only a Tier 5 warrior spirit while the other disciples had advanced to Tier 6. He would probably take Xiao Tianba seriously if it was before this, because of the vicious attack Xiao Tianba's Metal Path warrior soul had. However, now that he was a Tier 6 peak warrior spirit, Xiao Tianba was not worth his time. While they conversed, Duanmu curled his lips into a smile, eluding a rather elegant yet natural presence. What do you think? Xiao Tianba was indifferent to Duanmu Qing's provocation. He knew what Duanmu Qing was getting at, but it was only right to suppress all emotions in the arena prior to the outcome. Invincible Golden Body Technique, Immovable King's Palm. Without wasting another breath, he circulated his body of true qi and ripped the dimension with his Tier 5 warrior spirit's Metal Path true qi. His Metal Path warrior soul brought forth a Metal Path dam that was instilled in the powerful Invincible Golden Body, which was an Onyx Tier inferior skill. With a yard-long golden palm print appearing out of thin air, an aura of indistinct solemnity filled the atmosphere. Then, the palm print was viciously slammed onto Duanmu Qing. This palm print gave off an unrivaled vibe that shook the arena and left every disciple shaking uncontrollably. They were all shocked that a warrior spirit's Metal Path attack was indeed revering. Such an attack was a rare sight to warrior-level disciples. It was a duel between the strongest and it was a powerful Metal Path attack. I would have been wary of junior brother Zhao's Immovable King's Palm if it were before, but now, this move can only be effective on someone else. Star Radiance, Destroy. A destructive force soared in the sky, stunning the disciples in the square. They were captivated by this towering force. The air was ripped apart as though it was the apocalypse. The sky darkened, but a single glow like a star in the night flickered. What a terrifying qi! This is the Star Radiant Body. Who would have thought that he had awakened the Star Radiant Body? Pay close attention. Don't let them get hurt. Xiao Tianba would not be able to withstand the Star Radiant Body. The 4 warrior king elders stood up in alarm. The omnipotent Star Radiant Body had only existed in the legends, yet Duanmu Qing had managed to awaken it. The Star Radiant Body is indeed strong and a natural enemy to me. Duanmu Qing must die. Li Lingtian was overwhelmed with shock. The Star Radiant Body was a natural rival to the Flaming Sacred Body. For him to transmigrate all the way here and activate the Flaming Sacred Body, he was not going to allow a person with the Star Radiant Body to remain alive in this world. He had been inquisitive about the miraculous body types and warrior souls for a period of time. He had not attached any weight to it before, but now that he possessed a Flaming Sacred Body, he was convinced. Meanwhile, the disciples remained dumbstruck as a knuckle-sized radiance, that contrasted with gloomy sky cloud sex square, grew in volume. Immediately after, the radiance crashed onto Xiao Tianba like a shooting star. Boom! A destructive force blasted the arena to pieces. Following the destruction of Xiao Tianba's Immovable King's Palm, he was flung away from the arena. Tui! Xiao Tianba spewed a mouthful of blood. His invincible golden body technique was still intact as it protected his body with a flickering golden glow. However, his face had turned pale. It was lucky that he cultivated the invincible golden body. Or else, he would have ended up half dead, or if not worse, dead. Fortunately, he did not suffer serious injuries and was lucky to have escaped death. Senior brother Duanmu, Senior brother Duanmu. Star Radiant Body is horrifying. This is the strength of a Tier 6 warrior spirit. The first place definitely belongs to senior brother Duanmu. The Star Radiant Body. Sky Cloud sect is bound to have a super genius who would reign the top 10 in the world. Looking at the proud Duanmu Qing in the arena, the disciples beneath finally returned to their senses and showered him with faces of envy and admiration. With an air of worldly disdain, Duanmu Qing swept a glance past the disciples in the square. He would triumph over Sky Cloud's sect with the birth of this Star Radiant Body. A great master would emerge amid Sky Cloud sect 10 years later. However, his expression hardened when his gaze fell on Tang Zimeng, whose fair dainty hand was held by a young man. They looked intimate as she rested her body weight on him. Chapter 28. Chapter 28. Sensing Duanmu Qing's gaze, Li Lingtian's lips curled into a smile. He did not care for Duanmu Qing's feelings. He had always taken Duanmu Qing lightly, but now that he had discovered Duanmu Qing's possession of Star Radiant Body, Li Lingtian was brewing with killing intent. Since this person could not be subdued, he must be killed because they were natural enemies. Moreover, the fact that Duanmu Qing's elders had used Tang Zimeng as a pawn left him fuming with murderous intent. Duanmu Qing wins. Long Tian said in a piercing voice, announcing Duanmu Qing's victory. With 2 challenges over, there should be another 2 more rounds before the grand tournament comes to an end. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge? Long Tian's eyes fixated on Lan Yuyan. Out of the top 5, she was the only one who was neither challenged nor initiated a challenge so naturally. His attention was on her. Needless to say, there should be a major battle between Duanmu Qing and Dongfang Qingyu, but the chances were looking slim for Dongfang Qingyu. Star Radiant Body was beyond anyone's expectations. Senior brother Dongfang, will the first place be between us? Duanmu Qing's piercing eyes turned away from Li Lingtian before it darted towards Lan Yuyan, then to Dongfang Qingyu. Only Dongfang Qingyu's cultivation was at a level worthy enough for them both to fight for the championship. Humph. With a stiffened face, Lan Yuyan coldly snorted. Although her ability did not match Dongfang Qingyu's and Duanmu Qing's, she was displeased to be completely ignored by Duanmu Qing. Ha, I know myself well enough to know that I won't be able to defeat junior brother Duanmu with your Star Radiant Body and destructive force. I forego the battle for first place. Taken aback by Dongfang Qingyu's words, the disciples in the square looked at Duanmu Qing in shock. For Dongfang Qingyu, a super genius to voluntarily admit defeat, Duanmu Qing's popularity and fame suddenly rose to great heights. The few warrior kings were dumbstruck, but they quickly wrapped their heads around it. The Star Radiant Body was so powerful, it could lead to fatal destruction. There was no one else like Xiao Tianba who had cultivated the invincible golden body technique. Senior brother Duanmu. Senior brother Duanmu is placed first. The mighty senior brother Duanmu. Senior brother Duanmu is Sky Cloud sect's number 1. Countless disciples broke out in cheers. In this dog-eat-dog world, the people in it were realistic and hailed only the strongest. It was a foregone conclusion that Duanmu Qing hailed first place, hence they cheered for the strong. The Star Radiant Body must be crushed today. Li Lingtian took a glance at Tang Zimeng before he revealed a broad grin. It would be harder to kill Duanmu Qing in the future if not now. It was now or never. Brother Lingtian, Meng Meng doesn't want you to risk your life. Tang Zimeng looked into Li Lingtian's eyes as she spoke. She was aware of Li Lingtian's intention to fight Duanmu Qing, but Duanmu Qing's ability spoke for itself. However great Li Lingtian was, he was only a warrior. Moreover, Duanmu Qing possessed a Star Radiant Body. Worried sick, she could think of nothing but to stop Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian was not useless, and as long as they were left alone, both of them could live an ordinarily uneventful life. Now, I shall announce that the first place belongs to Duanmu Qing, second place, Dongfang Qingyu, third place, Lan Yuyan, fourth place, Xiao Tianba, and fifth place, Murong Tianjiao. Are there any other disciples who wish to throw down the gauntlet? Seeing that there were no more disciples up for the challenge, Long Tian declared out loud. The last question was thrown towards the disciples in the third stage, but everyone knew well that warriors could not compare to warrior spirits. All the disciples erupted in cheers. No one could move Duanmu Qing from first place. Sky Cloud's sect would only grow stronger with star-radiant body. Me. A faint voice rang out in disharmony. Amid the cheers, the soft yet clear voice made its way into everyone's ears. Turning their gaze to the source of the voice, they saw a smiling young man in white trod towards the arena, carrying a rather aloof demeanor. Tang Zimeng, Shuede, and the rest of the gang followed close behind anxiously. It was impossible for anyone to stop Li Lingtian from carrying out his heart's desire. Shuede and the other two had placed their blind trust in Li Lingtian, but their beliefs were shaken at the face of a Tier 6 warrior spirit with a star-radiant body. Ha! Ha! Is he out of his mind? He didn't even bother to compete for the top 10 in the third stage. What makes him think he can challenge a warrior spirit powerhouse? What a joke. Has he gone mad trying to be famous? Isn't he the peripheral trash? Don't embarrass yourself here. The thousands of disciples in the square burst into laughter. Not only had the peripheral trash made it to the third stage's top 10, but he was now trying to challenge a warrior spirit disciple in the inner sect. Above the platform, dozens of piercing eyes swarmed over Li Lingtian. They looked at Li Lingtian astonishingly, with ever-changing expressions as though he was some alien. This disciple must have lost his mind. If not, why would he stir trouble with a warrior spirit? It was a gateway straight to hell. I get it. Old Duanmu and Old Tang are trying to form a partnership through marriage, but that little girl and this young man had been engaged since they were young. Hee hee, what's love for youngsters? So he's risking it for the goddess. Sigh, I'd be willing to die if someone treats me this way. Countless female disciples immediately saw the connection upon witnessing Li Lingtian's suicidal move to challenge the top 100 spot and with Tang Zimeng right beside him. Li Lingtian may only be 15 years old, but he had a build of an adult. His indifferent attitude and faint smile gave out a carefree vibe that naturally won over a lot of women's hearts. Who do you want to challenge? The 100th place. With a smile on his face, Long Tian asked Li Lingtian aloud as Li Lingtian moved near the arena without stepping foot into it. He admired Li Lingtian's guts. Senior brother Duanmu Qing's star-radiant body is fascinating. I wish to see more of it. Li Lingtian asserted as he bowed to Long Tian and the judges above the platform. His gaze then turned to the arena that was now within his reach. Duanmu Qing stood at ease on the shattered arena in a charming manner. Ha! Whoa! The disciples burst into an uproar before falling into a state of shock. Oh, the words that came out from his mouth. He wanted to challenge first place, Duanmu Qing. Curious, the judges and warrior kings on the platform stood up to examine Li Lingtian. After concluding that this disciple had not lost his mind, they were at a loss by his action instead. Am I spinning or is the world spinning? The world has gone mad. Oh my days, I can't take it. Wanting to challenge senior brother Duanmu who's in first place, is he bored of life or joking? The disciples went numb as they no longer understood this world. Here was a mad youth who dared to challenge Duanmu Qing for the sake of the goddess. Duanmu Qing too was baffled for a moment, but his mood quickly turned to delight. This man was looking at his death wish and he even thought that star-radiant body was fascinating. Was he implying that his star-radiant body was more apparent than real? Tang Zimeng was not someone a good-for-nothing could have his way with, so Duanmu Qing was determined to end Li Lingtian today. Due to his gift and ability, no one would dare say a thing if he were to kill Li Lingtian. In fact, being challenged by a good-for-nothing was an insult. His frustration would not die down if he did not kill Li Lingtian. Humph, who would have thought this useless piece of trash would become a Tier 9 warrior? Yang Xiaotian noticed Li Lingtian's cultivation level. Li Lingtian was only a Tier 6 warrior the last time he saw him, but he was now a Tier 9 peak warrior. This gave Yang Xiaotian a bitter feeling. Senior brother Yang, you're an 8th place master in the inner sect. Don't tell me you're afraid of a warrior. Zhou Xiao glared at Yang Xiaotian with a peculiar grin. Both of them were always on opposing ends, and it had never occurred to him that his old rival would bear a grudge against a warrior. Humph, don't try to act funny. 8th place. I'm nothing before senior brother Dongfang and the rest. However, it's good if this good-for-nothing dies. It'll save me the trouble. Yang Xiaotian glared at Li Lingtian. He had never placed any importance on this good-for-nothing before, but he had since humiliated the Yang family by crippling a few of Yang family's disciples. You must be prepared to pay a heavy price for challenging me. Duan Muqing stared back at Li Lingtian angrily. The latter was playing with fire for laying a hand on a goddess like Tang Zimeng. It was high time that Duan Muqing took this opportunity to kill him. Wham! At the sudden surge of an astounding vigor, forces were spread throughout a 30 miles radius. Sensing this mounting repression, the true qi in the body of many disciples were suppressed by this vigor. Duan Muqing wanted to crush Li Lingtian, this good-for-nothing with vigor as a deterrent to others. This was to let them know that the pride of a warrior spirit, the top genius in Sky Cloud's sect, should never be challenged. What a powerful vigor! Even a Tier 9 warrior spirit can't amount to that. A possessor of the star-radiant body is indeed omnipotent. The judges on the platform were surprised by Duan Muqing's vigor. The brilliance of others would be lost and buried by such a disciple in the sect. Tens of thousands of disciples were equally amazed, and they foresaw that Li Lingtian would be crushed by this vigor. Xue De and the other two, along with Tang Zimeng, were bracing themselves. There was no one amongst Sky Cloud sect disciples who could resist against a Tier 6 warrior spirit's star-radiant body. That's all. A monotonous voice was heard. The voice was not loud, but it shocked everyone who heard it. Just like that, his remarkable vigor was shot down by a comment. Chapter 29. Chapter 29. Everyone turned their attention to Li Lingtian as they were baffled by his disposition. Li Lingtian looked like a floating cloud. Dressed in white, he carried an indifferent attitude whilst his slender figure exuded a rather calm presence amid the furious storm of forces. Boom! Wham! With his eyes on Duan Muqing, Li Lingtian circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation to set off the true qi in his body with haste, warding off the mighty repression. The fire dragon's heart spun quickly in his dantian too. However, the fire dragon's might was also profoundly powerful. Although he could not attain full control of the fire dragon's heart, it was more than enough to keep him from being crushed by Duan Muqing's repression. He gently took a step forward. With that, the vigor over his body suddenly intensified. With each step forward, the vigor over Li Lingtian increased, and as sounds of heavy footsteps echoed on the solid ground in the square, countless disciples' faces turned pale. They could feel the thumping on their chests. This vigor is very violent. His vigor is still rising. What a strange vigor. There's only one word to sum up the sect's grand tournament: fascinating. Back on the platform, the judges were having an intense discussion. The four warrior king elders perked up at the sight of Li Lingtian and became curious about his display of vigor. Get down here. With his vigor reaching a pinnacle, it drew a parallel of the strength between him and Duan Muqing. Looking at a proud Duan Muqing in the arena, Li Lingtian coldly blurted while he circulated his fire dragon's heart, prompting a defiant burst of flaming qi. Boom! The square shook following a bang. The two powerful vigors had come into blows. Li Lingtian's vigor may not be on a par with Duan Muqing's, but the might of the fire dragon's heart was incomparable. The result of the domineering flaming qi merging into his vigor was simply astounding. Humph! Duan Muqing let out a cold snort at the sound of the bang. He no longer looked down upon Li Lingtian, this warrior disciple, and instead, he could feel fear seeping into him. He was filled with furious rage when Li Lingtian shouted at him to get down. Li Lingtian's vigor may exceed his expectation, but he was still far from bearing comparison to him. Li Lingtian must be out of his mind to command him like that. However, whilst he snorted, he detected that a destructive flaming qi was rushing over towards him, forcing him to take a step back. With just one false step, he then fell off the arena. Whoa! The warriors in the square were completely gobsmacked. It had never crossed their minds that Duan Muqing would be tripped off the arena by Li Lingtian's vigor. A Tier 6 warrior spirit with the star-radiant body was knocked down by the vigor of a Tier 9 warrior disciple. The judges and 4 warrior king on the platform were dumbstruck too. I don't like to see those on high. Now, you can unleash your star-radiant body. These careless words set another round of whirlwind among the warriors. Never had they seen such an arrogant person. After all that commotion of being crushed by vigor, the battle had not even started. How could they possibly take it? All right. Duan Muqing descended onto the square. Visibly upset, he glared at Li Lingtian. His glowering face was an indication that he wanted to tear Li Lingtian apart. He had never thought that he would be humiliated in front of so many warriors. Star-radiant body, destroy. He circulated his body of true qi to the extreme, stimulating the blood circulation in his star-radiant body. Then, a giant light ball appeared in his hand. Compared to the darker end of the square, the giant ball was like the sun. It's the destructive force from the star-radiant body again. It's over. Li Lingtian's definitely done for. Such a pity that he was too insolent. Li Lingtian would become a genius if he didn't step on senior brother Duan Muqing's toes. At the sight of Duan Muqing launching an attack, many disciples shared the same thought that the match was over. No one was able to withstand the destructive force, let alone a warrior disciple. Elder Qin, do we stop the match? Zhang Ling was shocked upon witnessing Duan Muqing's attack. He was pleased with Li Lingtian, so he did not want any harm to come to these 2 disciples. No matter how omnipotent the warrior disciple was, it was impossible for him to defend against the destructive force of a star-radiant body. Hold on. Qin Tian faintly answered, but he circulated his body of true qi in the meantime. In case Li Lingtian was at risk, he would be able to rescue him. Li Lingtian looked back calmly at the star-radiant body. Although he had a composed demeanor, killing intent was brewing within him. The person in possession of the star-radiant body must die. Star-radiant body, humph. Flaming divine fist, penetrate. He had circulated his heaven and earth reincarnation to the fullest at the fire dragon's heart in his dantian was at the point of exploding. Even his flaming sacred body could sense the violent destructive flaming qi stir in the fire dragon's heart. Once the fire dragon's heart was mobilized, a fearsome scorching force was sent to his arm. Li Lingtian then unleashed the flaming divine fist and a flame that was the length of a yard emerged. What a strange flaming qi. I can't believe this horrifying flaming qi. Flaming sacred body, it's flaming sacred body. The warrior kings were taken aback by Li Lingtian's terrifying flaming qi. Although they thought nothing of Li Lingtian's cultivation level and ability, this flaming qi left them trembling in the knees. Flaming sacred body. It's the flaming sacred body. Flaming sacred body. It's the flaming sacred body in the legends. The flaming sacred body against the star-radiant body. It's no wonder. On the platform, the judges and warrior kings' minds were blown. They had finally witnessed the flaming sacred body in the flesh. The flaming sacred body had reputation no less to the star-radiant body, or perhaps it was even stronger. No, the flaming sacred body is a constitution, but this qi is familiar. Could it be the fire dragon cave? He went into the fire dragon cave. Investigate, look into it now. Elder Qin, it's the fire dragon's qi. As the warrior kings were wrapped in perplexity, the fire dragon cave came into Qin Tian's mind. This flaming qi carried a familiar fire dragon's qi, and in Sky Cloud sect, the fire dragon cave was most well known. Krung. At that moment, an earth-shattering blow exploded in the air. While the destructive force from the star-radiant body was heading towards Li Lingtian, it filled the atmosphere with catastrophic energy. Hence, Li Lingtian slammed the flaming divine fist with a blend of the fire dragon's heart's energy. The square was flipped upside down at the collision of the two attacks. Not only were countless disciples swept away by these forces, but both Li Lingtian and Duan Muqing were repulsed by the impact as well. Tui! Tui! Two separate sounds of blood spats followed. Struck by weight of destruction, the duo spat out a mouthful of blood. Retreat to over 200 yards, Long Tian shouted. The battle between two disciples had gone beyond the might of the warrior spirits. The affected area was incredibly massive and any ordinary disciples would be killed upon contact. Not bad, not bad. You're the first to survive my destructive force. The murderous intent on Duan Muqing's face intensified. Being beaten by a warrior disciple had stripped his pride away. For the endless threats this disciple had brought about, he must be deprived of existence. Don't think highly of yourself. You're nothing in my eyes. We should bring a heavier storm. With a deranged smile on his face, Li Lingtian's slender figure withstood the inexhaustible tearing forces as his long mane scattered in all directions and swayed with the wind. He did not look like a good-for-nothing but rather an almighty master. Overlord Spear, Forces Destruction Strike. The star-radiant body was a constitution that was extremely powerful while the flaming sacred body was equally a vector and incomparable in its right. Nevertheless, the duo was unable to bring the constitution to full play due to their lack in cultivation level. For that, they would require the aid of skills and armed weapons. A foot-long imperious spear emerged with an air of destruction. In the blink of an eye, the spear pounced onto Li Lingtian as if it was an embodiment of a flood dragon. 1. Sky-perishing spear. Li Lingtian unleashed the same ordinary spiritual equipment. The two ordinary spiritual equipments then clashed violently against one another, driving sounds of explosion. Li Lingtian continued to retreat and was eventually overcome by Duan Muqing. The difference between a Tier 6 warrior spirit and Tier 9 warrior was worlds apart. It would be a miracle if Li Lingtian survived this move. Li Lingtian could not gain a single advantage from the spiritual equipment. Moreover, Duan Muqing's force's destructive strike was an Onyx tier skill. Li Lingtian immediately regretted not opting for the sky-perishing spear. Die. As Li Lingtian gradually lost momentum, Duan Muqing laid bare his ruthlessness. He gathered all his strength into the spear and struck a deadly blow onto Li Lingtian. Stop. No. Brother Lingtian. Everyone in the square watched in horror, including the judges and warrior kings on the platform. However, it was too late to stop it. The sky-perishing spear was cast away from Li Lingtian's grip. With Duan Muqing's overlord spear already on its way, even a warrior king would not be able to intercept in such a distance. Do you think it'll be this easy? If so, I can only say that you're naive. Li Lingtian was surprised to find that the destructive force was corroding his body as the overlord spear approached. It was wishful thinking to dodge the overlord spear with Breeze technique. Once the attack of a warrior spirit was targeted and locked in by the divine mindfulness, it was impossible to evade. At the arousal of his divine mindfulness, Li Lingtian extended his arm before a ring, the size of a palm emerged. The ring, alternating between red and blue color, enlarged to a yard long and acted as a barricade in front of Li Lingtian. Ice and Fire Ring. A tiny voice was heard. Although the voice was soft, it caught Li Lingtian's attention. He was shocked to learn that someone here recognized the Ice and Fire Ring. Something did not add up. After scanning with his divine mindfulness, he found a Tier 3 warrior spirit with mixed emotions, a blend of shock and excitement. Bam! The overlord spear rammed onto the ring with a thundering blow but failed to advance further. However, Li Lingtian was still blown away by the powerful assault, with traces of bloodstains on the edge of his lips. The ice and fire ring grew dim until it resumed to its original form and returned to Li Lingtian's hand. The ice and fire ring had blocked off this fatal strike. The square was now pin-drop silence. Everyone's jaw dropped at the sight that a mysterious treasure had warded off the overload spear from killing Li Lingtian. The four warrior kings let out a sigh of relief but were more so tickled with curiosity. Their abilities were miles apart, yet they displayed equal strength in the face of confrontation. They wanted to know just how many cards these two disciples had up their sleeves. A duel of this kind surpassed any battle amongst warrior spirit disciples.